The scene was blurry, with streaks of light tearing through space. In this wretched world, I've lived a truly pathetic life. Xian wore a look of panic and despair. After all, what could someone weak like him do without money or status of his own? The abyss was like a monster's maw, swallowing everything around it. And that's the very reason I am slowly dying. Because I am too weak. The point of impact flashed like a crack of destiny. About 100 years ago, a terrifying, blinding light descended upon Earth. That light exploded violently, beginning to consume all life on this planet. A white light tore through the night. The small blue planet, which was once the cradle of all things, now felt its life being stripped away in an instant, quickly transforming into a giant desert. The city descended into a scene of ruin. The few survivors could do nothing but build their own fortresses. His expression was a mix of complex emotions. If it was going to be destroyed, why not just wipe it out completely? Why let these bugs keep surviving? Instantly, Xian was shoved backward by the force of an impact. The thug's mouth curled into a provocative smirk. Oops, sorry, just a light tap, that's all. He maintained a nonchalant look. My bad, seriously, my apologies. Give me your name so I know how to make it up to you. His expression was a mix of complex emotions. Xian. The thug burst into excited laughter. Just one name? Does the kid only have one father? His gaze darkened as he spoke in a mocking tone. Look at this kid's pouty face. The guys on this mind-bound bus usually shared one thing in common. The thug excitedly leaned in and patted his shoulder. Relax, kid. Since we're in the same boat, we should get along, right? Xian sank into deep thought. None of these people were actual minors. So, what did you get caught for? His eyes were filled with complex emotions. They were either criminals or wanted men. It had to be one of the two. There was no escaping that. The mocking voice rang out again. Assault, fraud, or theft, if you want to listen to me. Xian struck back with a punch as fast as lightning. The thug fell backward in pain. He clenched his fist with a crazed look. Dead wrong, you idiot. You really want to know. His gaze carried intense, murderous intent. I'm in for murder. He briefly fell into a contemplative silence. Actually, to be precise, I didn't kill a human, because in this Neo-Soul, only the strong are considered people. His expression was a mix of complex emotions. It's nothing big. What's the problem with adding a pile of trash to a landfill? It was just a rat that insisted on stealing my stuff, so I took care of it. Damn it, I didn't know it was someone else's pet rat. Legion's younger brother spoke in a provocative tone. Do you know who my brother Lee Juryong is? You're dead meat. You fool, his face turned pale with horror. It's Lee Juryong. A wave of killing intent immediately surrounded the area. If the strong are considered humans, then those who have awakened are gods standing above everyone else. A chill ran down Xian's spine from panic. A street rat like me accidentally offended a god. The rumor that Lee Juryong was hunting me down spread everywhere. So I scrambled onto this bus heading toward the mines immediately. He froze for a moment, calculating. Hey, the thug remained unfazed by the powerful punch. Are you done talking? Xian was still in a daze. What was that? Why does my head hurt so much? Don't tell me. In the moment he was distracted, he was knocked backward. His face twisted in pain. He slowly loosened his joints. Why didn't you say so sooner? I'm here for the exact same reason. I could have treated you like a little brother and shown some love, but you've crossed the line of my tolerance. He seemed to lose his cool out of pure rage. Damn it, you bastard, are you kidding me? I had to run for my life to escape and awakened. Do you guys understand? Do you know what I had to go through just to crawl to this place? Damn it, why here? Why? The henchman chimed in provocatively. Looks like the big brother needs to teach you a lesson. The murderous aura around the thug exploded. Everyone here agrees, right? Xian questioned with dissatisfaction. He's an awakened. Even in this hellhole, I run into an awakened. He decisively lunged into the encirclement. The vehicle shook violently from the impact. The man's voice deepened with a threat. Damn it, what is this? Driver, do you even know how to drive? His back looked momentarily heavy and helpless. He clutched his wound and asked angrily, what the hell is that guy mumbling about? His face twisted in horror. He paused and spoke hesitantly. It's not like that, I already said it wasn't. We aren't heading to the mine. His eyes were bloodshot with a crazed look. What are you babbling about? Sweat poured down his face. We are. The abyss, like a monster's maw devouring everything, has swallowed us whole. Everyone immediately tilted as they lost their balance. Thinking about it, things just keep repeating like before. Everyone immediately tilted as they lost their balance. Thinking about it, things just keep repeating like before. He had once sunk into bottomless pits out of helplessness. Whether it's in Neo-Soul or when I run into an awakened, even getting eaten by a sandworm is nothing special. At this moment, Xian was still struggling for his life. Because in this trash heap of a world, being preyed upon by the strong is just common practice. His eyes were bloodshot. His vision gradually became blurred. So, if I die here, it's just because I'm too weak. Darkness seemed to cover everything, a conclusion so mundane and predictable it was boring. Of course, I always dreamed of a scenario where I was a bit stronger so I wouldn't have to die a pathetic death like this. But now, those words are just meaningless illusions. A hand tenaciously reached up from the sea of sand. The ground was still slowly trembling. His fingers were broken, but they still carried resilience. The sand pit continued to swirl like a cyclone. He immediately opened his eyes in surprise. Xian had powerfully escaped from being buried by the sand pit. He clenched his shirt as tears fell. Xian's entire body was suffering from tearing pain. Broken statues appeared all around. His eyes were bloodshot in terror. The tall tower also gradually tilted and collapsed. The whole city was submerged in a sandstorm. Xian froze, rooted to the spot. The sturdy buildings were slowly rotting away. His expression was a mix of complex emotions. The point of impact flashed like a crack of destiny. Xian's eyes seemed to contain the entire galaxy. His whole body was covered in powerful inner energy. The sand exploded. The beam of light pierced through, leaving a large hole. Sticky fluid fell slowly. I must survive. His expression was a mix of complex emotions in this cursed world, filled only with dust. He stood up straight with a resilient look. I swear. A spark flashed in his eyes. He faced the monster with a crazed expression. I will survive at any cost. His expression was a mix of complex emotions. I can feel this pain vividly. He seemed to feel a change in his body. Every cell in him was screaming. This is my awakening. Xian stood tall before the ferocious monster. It aimed its sharp teeth toward him crazily. Xian remained calm, his gaze unwavering. All right, come on then. Zhang Yongbayam suddenly appeared, pushing him back. To a test subject, you're just an obstacle. His eyes widened in horror. He was pushed backward by a force. A moment later, he slammed hard into the ground. He struggled to sit up and spoke with dissatisfaction. What the hell? Who is that guy? When did he get so close? A chill ran down his spine from fear. Too close. The stench of blood immediately covered the space. What is he made of that he won't go down after all these hits? He stood tall and announced clearly, afraid of heights. Then let me send you back down. Zhang Yongbayam raised his leg toward the sword and brought it down. First floor. The giant monster quickly collapsed to the ground. He changed color instantly as he witnessed it. What the hell? Xian sank into deep thought. He took down a sandworm in the blink of an eye. The man sighed, the feeling still not fading. So this is awakening. His expression was a mix of complex emotions. I've never seen an awaken like that before. Giselle excitedly introduced him. Zhang Yongbayam, that's our captain. He paused in confusion. What? She smiled excitedly. See, that's why he's the captain. Is this the fastest he's ever taken down an opponent? Xian became alert. When did he strike? He was horrified as his arm felt like it had fallen into an ice cellar. He's much stronger than he looks. Wait a minute. His arm? It's freezing. Yongbayam's voice deepened with power. Sandworms aren't that hard to deal with. And this? Giselle excitedly replied, understood, boss. His gaze was a mix of complex emotions. Yongbayam sighed as he watched the argument unfolding. Seriously, damn it. She smiled excitedly with a look of intrigue. Giselle decisively dragged him away. Then she immediately tackled him to gain control. Giselle watched intently with excitement. All right, let's see what his rank and ability are. Let's check. Excited. She froze, her eyes full of suspicion. Giselle's voice dropped heavily. Captain, this guy isn't an awakened. She resisted shakily. What do you mean? That's impossible. She maintained a nonchalant look. Look. Xian's frustrated scream rang out. Are you crazy? Hurry up. Giselle declared clearly, he doesn't have a rank badge. His gaze dropped in anger. No badge, really? I've clearly awakened, right? Why is there nothing? The driver immediately warned him urgently. Stop standing there like a statue, move. I told you the sun is setting, hurry up. Her eyes flickered and she spoke in a heavy tone. Captain, what should we do with him? If we leave him, he's a goner. Xian frowned in dissatisfaction. You're about to break my arm, let go. Yongbayam's expression was a mix of complex emotions. He also watched intently without flinching. He waved his hand nonchalantly and declared, throw him on the truck. He's heading toward the mine anyway. Giselle became excited. Understood. The truck sped through the desert. Her voice became stern to warn him. Why are you always rushing in alone? I told you don't make things more complicated, don't separate from the group, and don't pretend to be deaf. Xian lay quietly through the heated argument. How much further to the mine? Don't change the subject. What if the sun sets? That's a nice truck. He froze when the sand shifted. It's always like this. Xian maintained a nonchalant look. He decisively sat up and confirmed the movements were under his control. I've definitely awakened something. His eyes were suspicious with an uneasy look. But why can't they see my rank badge? Thinking about it, the color is a bit strange too. Orange? No, it's not. He watched the badge on his arm intently. It's the same color as the sand. His expression was a mix of complex emotions. The light of the badge reflects the awaken's natural talent. Giselle laughed heartily with an excited look. Magic types will glow blue. Yongbayam's face changed in vigilance. Combat types will glow red. His hand slowly touched the sand. Although there are rare cases of other talents, his eyes were focused on controlling his actions. But he had never heard of a power that controls sand. His face showed relief and satisfaction. The system displays the lowest rank, rank F, but I can feel this power has infinite potential, just like the desert itself. Xian's mouth curled into an excited smirk. He kept focused on his control ability. I'll wait until I've fully mastered it. Until that day, I'll hide it and endure. His expression shifted to a crazed look. This entire desert, this entire world, will be my stage. The scene changed as the sun set. He observed meticulously. So this is the stone mine? There's even a checkpoint. It looks pretty normal. The guide spoke in a low, threatening tone. Hey, you follow me? Xian spoke helplessly. You still haven't untied me. He gritted his teeth. One more word and I'll gag you myself. He immediately lowered his voice urgently. All right, I get it. His eyes were on high alert. Something isn't right. Giselle maintained her nonchalant look. Because he's the only survivor, don't overthink it must be luck. Yang Bayam's expression was a mix of complex emotions. No, it's not luck. He frowned and spoke hesitantly. What the hell? A mysterious pit suddenly appeared. That pit is. Yang Bayam walked slowly with a look of doubt. I should have asked for his name. I have a feeling I'll run into him again someday. On the street, people were coming and going, laughing as they walked. The shops here were also crowded with customers. Xian looked around with a completely nonchalant expression. I thought mines only had tunnels. Turns out it has everything. Looks like people really live here. The guide angrily held his gun and untied him. Shut up, keep your mouth shut and wait there until the manager comes. Seeing that furious attitude, Xian was puzzled. Are you just going to leave like that? The guide shouted while pointing at his face. What? You want me to put a bullet in your head before I go? Xian stood there with a blank expression. No, I mean, what if I do something here? He asked, but the man just turned away in anger. Do whatever the hell you want. What use is a piece of trash like you anyway? Xian darted his eyes left and right, scanning his surroundings. What a fool. I'm hungry, so I might as well look around. Is there anywhere to get a bite to eat nearby? He then walked up to an old man standing nearby. Excuse me, may I ask you something? The moment he finished speaking, his eyes widened in sheer astonishment. On the wall was an advertisement with a motto. Let our labor light the way, Neo Soul. Noticing his fixed gaze, the man spoke up. What do you think? A wonderful motto to live by, isn't it? The man's calloused hands tightened. It's laughably true. Exactly. Isn't the energy source of Neo Soul mana crystals? Xian sat down and rested his chin in his hand, deep in thought. What do you mean? If it's not mana, what other energy source could there be? The man pointed a finger straight at him. It's you. The man, Klexi, gave a sinister, knowing smile. It's rats just like you. You just follow orders, and whenever they're short on people, they just add more. Isn't that the perfect energy source? Xian nonchalantly chewed on a skewer of grilled meat, continuing to grumble. You've only just met me, and you're doing a lot of talking. People your age are probably already swimming in the river of no return. The old man chuckled and replied with a casual shrug. At this age, everything starts to interest me. Then Klexi rested his chin on his hands and looked thoughtfully at Xian. So, what's a sandworm's stomach like? Does it feel anything like being in a mother's womb? Xian froze, his eyes widening in shock. Do rumors really spread that fast? Klexi threw his head back and laughed out loud. This goofy kid, I can tell you're going to be sandworm dung soon. This place isn't a shelter for you to hide in. Xian looked up with a confused expression, still chewing his meat. A shelter? I came here to make money. The old man abruptly stopped laughing and pointed behind him. Bullshit. Let me show you something interesting. Look over there. In the distance were shelves stacked with old, rotting crates. Seeing this, Xian looked at the man with a skeptical expression. Are you senile? You call this pile of trash interesting? What is all that? Klexi rested his chin on his hand and smiled proudly. Those are the things I've gathered little by little. The old man's eyes flickered toward him with hidden meaning. They're the final destination for everyone who comes here, and they're your future, too. Klexi recalled a memory and quietly began to speak. Everyone who first comes here resists going into the mines. You know that, right? The Mana Crystal Mine is exactly that kind of place. Fearing death if they step inside, they sell everything they can to hold on, even selling themselves cheap. But they're only buying time. Nothing gets solved. And whatever little they have left gradually fades away. In the end, everyone reaches the same conclusion. They tell themselves that being swallowed by the mine is easier. The old man paused, then spoke with a look of melancholy. They say a person leaves a name when they die, but trash only leaves behind garbage. Xian frowned, looking intrigued. Klexi noticed and pressed him. I'm looking forward to seeing what you leave behind. He stood up abruptly and asked bluntly, whatever, how much? The old man laughed excitedly and named his price. 10 sol. Xian slammed his hand on the table, his eyes wide with shock. Are you crazy? Is this meat plated in gold? Klexi offered a philosophical smile. Everything is precious here. Even the skewer you just threw away is worth 9 sol. Hearing that, the corner of his mouth twitched sarcastically. What kind of cheap meat are you serving to charge that much? Sorry, but I don't have that kind of money. The people around them suddenly stood up, weapons in hand. Xian remained standing, his tone mocking. You see I'm new and decided to rip me off, right? Have you lost your mind? 10 sol. Everyone, from the cook to the regular folks, had their tools of the trade ready in their hands. Xian stood there laughing and provoking them. Sorry, but I'm not paying. Figure it out yourselves. It was then that he noticed the crowd behind him. A cold sweat broke out on the back of his neck. Xian gathered his courage and turned his head to look. Seeing the scene, he stood rooted to the spot. Klexi laughed mockingly. Don't you see it? Why do you think an old man like me can calmly run a business right here in the mines? Right behind him was a wall of pitch-black darkness, but he could clearly see eyes as cold and sharp as blades. Klexi smiled, taking the initiative. Well, what are you going to do now? Trapped in this bizarre situation, he angrily slammed his hand on the table. He raised his voice to retort. Calm down, old man. Where would I get that kind of money? Demanding 10 sol for this meat is pure insanity. Hold on, let's negotiate. However, Klexi just grinned and replied gently. Short on cash? Don't worry, I'm not a heartless person. We can trade for something else. No sooner had he finished than his eyes darted to the crystal in Xion's pocket. That's right, the mana crystal in your pocket should be enough. His eyes flickered, and for a moment he reflected inwardly. Even that has become a rumor already. Klexi smiled and ordered. Hand it over now, I'll buy it at a perfectly fair price. Xion held his ground firmly. Cut the crap. Do you have any idea what I had to do to protect that? As he finished speaking, a large hand grabbed his head, pinning him down. Senior, isn't there any other way? How about letting me pay later? We could. With that, the man used all his strength to slam his head into the table violently. The man shouted at Klexi for his opinion. Boss, how long are we going to listen to him babble? Just bury this brat alive, guys like this. Before he could finish, the man's hand flew into the air, hovering, while his mouth was still rambling about sand spray guns. After regaining his senses, the man felt a sword slash graze across his bulging, muscular arm. A chunk of his arm fell away, sending a jolt of fear through those around him. That sword mark was born from sheer anger. His eyes were now glowing brightly, brimming with rage. However, it was only a dream. The mocking voices of the surrounding crowd still echoed in his ears. The man grabbed his head and shoved it forward. Look here. He even frowned in concern. Are you okay? You've been spacing out for a while now. Were you dreaming? Xion realized bitterly that it was all an illusion. Damn it. Xion, looking angry, threw the stone toward Klexi. Watching the old man pick it up, he gritted his teeth in fury. The mana stone he had fought tooth and nail to keep. Klexi held up the stone, examining it with a thoughtful expression. At this size, the old man pondered for a moment and named his price. Looking at it, it's probably worth about 100 sol. Hearing that price, he slammed his hand on the table. Are you not being serious? It has to be worth at least 300 sol. Why are you saying 100? Klexi replied calmly that everything was scarce here. If I'd known, I would have just sold it as sandworm dung. Xion angrily slammed the table once more. His hand trembled, veins bulging. These bastards. If I wanted to, I could easily knock this old man out, but it's not the time yet. Not yet. A moment later, he raised his head and gave a sinister smile. Give me a bit more change, old man. The people standing by sniffed with arrogant attitudes, while Klexi, having gotten what he wanted, nodded. All right, hide it well. This place is crawling with pickpockets and thieves, and I think I see one right in front of me now. The old man pointed behind him to the pile of old, tattered crates. Since this is our first trade, I'll throw in an extra item. Just go ahead and pick one from that pile. Looking around the pile, the old man stated decisively that he would give him whatever he grabbed. Xion started rummaging through the junk. Seriously, I thought there would be something cool, but it's all just trash. There was nothing decent to choose from. Klexi watched his gestures in silence. This kid is genuinely interesting, the type who would rather die than take a loss. It's been a long time since I've seen someone with that kind of vitality. Xion was busy digging around when he paused. Nothing better, this is. The old man stepped closer to look and explained. That, a merchant caravan left it behind. You probably won't find anything better than that. Xion picked it up, observed it, and made his decision. I'll take this. Klexi heard him and spoke in a teasing tone. You're always interested in the weird, useless stuff. He nodded, intentionally ignoring him. Yeah, I know. After taking a few steps, he suddenly paused. But hey, what's your name, old man? The old man ran after him, shouting his response. Klexi. Xion looked back and gave a slight smirk. Old man Klexi, it's best we never meet again. The old man smiled and turned his back to walk away. Who knows, kid? On one side, the hourglass was racing against time. Xion looked down at the fine sand grains inside with curiosity. Only 10 minutes left before it's all gone. At the miners' dormitory, Xion slumped onto the floor and pulled out his phone to type. All right, let's start. Inhale. He sat and breathed seriously, as if trying to calm his mind. Exhale, inhale. After a while, he gently opened his eyes. Exhale. He used all the strength he had just absorbed to try, and moved the hourglass nearby. Xion's serious face was suddenly reflected in the hourglass. As soon as he saw that, he angrily shoved it into his pocket. So it has nothing to do with my awakening after all. After calming down, he pondered, certain that this was the first time he had seen it. He thought about the hourglass and pondered, but he felt something was very strange. It's as if it were prepared just for me. Familiar, like it's calling to me, yet also brand new. What is this feeling? At that moment, a man named Park Manho kicked the door open and stormed in. You're the brat who just arrived today, right? He pointed a finger straight at his face and shouted, Hey, you dog, why haven't you crawled to the ore mine yet? I'm Park Manho. Do you expect me to come over here and drag you by the collar myself? He frowned and answered bluntly. I'm not a dog, I'm Xian. From the start, you didn't tell me where I had to go either. As soon as he finished, Manho gave him a god-tier punch, sending him flying. Manho's hand tightened into a fist. You brat. He lunged forward and roared. Shut that filthy mouth of yours. Manho kept punching and cursing. What, you dare talk back to me? Do you think I'm a pushover? Xian tried to cover himself with his arms, enduring every curse the man hurled. A loser who can't even awaken, and you dare to talk big, you bastard. It's best for trash like you to just shut up and take the beating. A moment later, Manho stopped punching and ordered loudly. Fine then, follow me, hurry up. Xian slowly sat up, holding his aching body, and followed Manho's back. He gathered his courage to speak up. Your personality is absolute garbage. Park Manho, I'll remember this name. You're someone I must kill. Over here at the entrance to Mine Area 3. A miner saw him appear and greeted him politely. Hello, Mr. Park. Manho brushed past him and ordered, give the equipment to this brat quick. Yes, sir. The miner helped him put on the gear. Manho walked ahead and started explaining the rules. Equipment rental and food costs will be deducted directly from your salary, so make sure you dig up mana stones and bring them here. Understand? Answer me, hurry. Hearing that, he was a little surprised. Is that all? How much is the salary? Xian scratched his head, looking at the man with a blank expression. I need things to be clear beforehand. Before he finished, Manho grabbed a nearby pickaxe and slammed it into his helmet. The man shouted and cursed continuously. You haven't even picked up a shovel and you're already asking for a salary? The cost of the helmet is deducted too. Remember that well, you bastard. Xian hung his head, cursing under his breath in anger. Damn it. Then Manho growled an order. Toss this guy into tunnel 972. The miner heard this and tried to intercede. But tunnel 972 still. Seeing him try to speak up, Manho roared threateningly. Or do you want to go in there instead of him? You want to go? Answer me now, you piece of trash. The miner fell silent, not daring to argue. Understood, let's go. The miner helped him along, whispering a reminder. Don't dream of crawling out until you've dug up mana stones. I'll really kill you. Xian remained stubborn and ignored him. That's your business. Manho, standing behind, suddenly growled, I can still hear you, you brat. A moment later, the miner led him deep into the black tunnel. The very day Park Manho lost all his money gambling, you happened to show your face. As they were walking, he stopped, stunned. Is there a casino here too? The miner nodded and even confirmed it. Of course, from prostitution and drinking to drugs, it's no different from the city of Neo Seoul. He looked up and wondered. With idiots like Park Manho around, I bet business here isn't that great, huh? This made the miner involuntarily laugh. Your mouth is really something else. Xian stood there, wondering vaguely. Do I really have to dig in a mine? My skin is very thin and bruises easily. The man's hands trembled as they gripped the iron railing beside him. You're sure not to get hurt. The miner suddenly bowed his head deep in thought. No one has ever been hurt in there, not a single person. Xian looked ahead calmly. We're here. As soon as he stepped inside, he couldn't help but be surprised. So this is tunnel 972. Xian slung the pickaxe over his shoulder and walked inside quietly. I just need to go in and dig for mana stones, right? I'll be back soon. You won't be able to come back. The miner quietly told him a few things. Over a dozen people have gone missing in there. Personally, I knew 4 of them. No one knows whether they're alive or dead or why. He left him there alone and walked up quietly. I'm very sorry and thank you too. His eyes widened, staring off into the distance like a hollow shell for having dared to go into a place no one dared to enter. Xian, stunned, looked up and shouted. Wait, does that mean they're all dead? Where do you think you're going? Are you planning to leave me here all alone? Hey. Seeing there was no response, he stood there with a look of disappointment. Are you really leaving? Seriously. He grabbed his tools and started digging. You bastards, are you doing this just because you're in a bad mood? Why did you throw me into this dump? While digging, his tools suddenly flew off and hit him in the face. I hope all of you rot and die. Seeing the pickaxe running on its own, he rushed to chase after it. Come back here now. Not knowing if it was by accident or intent, he wandered into another dark place. What the hell is this? Xian stood in the vast, empty space, observing silently. I was too annoyed to notice earlier, but today it's full of mana. Is it because they're regular people that they can't sense it? He took off his helmet and covered his nose and mouth with his hand. The deeper I go, the denser the mana gets. If I were a normal person, I would have been overloaded by now. Where on earth is all this mana coming from? Suddenly, a beam of light burst out before him. As he approached, he jumped for joy. Found it, my pickaxe is right here. Xian was excitedly walking forward when the ground suddenly dipped unexpectedly. The handle is broken, but at least I got it back. Suddenly, a black hole appeared right underneath him. Xian hadn't realized it yet and was still cheerful. Looks like I'm still lucky. As he finished speaking, his eyes rounded as he looked down at the hole. As if an invisible force was pulling him down, he struggled to escape. Wait, what is this? Don't tell me this is a portal. That kid is as good as done for. Before long, he disappeared, leaving only the helmet and the pickaxe lying scattered on the ground. Suddenly, the light from the helmet's flashlight shone on the pickaxe, which had been broken in two. A distant scene suddenly came rushing back. Xian stood alone in the rain with a toy in his hand. His parents abandoned him, so what can you expect? I just hope he doesn't keel over and die right in front of my door. What kind of life did I actually want? Because of his hunger in the pouring rain, Xian stole some food and was chased by them. You want to die? You've got a lot of nerve stealing our food. I just didn't want to be starved, that's all. As he grew older, he even stole gemstones, forcing employees and everyone else to chase after him. Catch that brat now? I also once wanted to have dreams of my own. Everywhere he went, there were shrill, cursing voices. Do you know who you just killed? Let's see where you're going to run to now. Your miserable life ends here, you dog. Even if I was dying of fear or running away. I don't care what happens to him, just keep him breathing. Even if you have to break his legs, catch him. A life where I don't have to fear death every single day. Day after day, he had to endure those stinging curses. Just a normal life. After a while of being lost in thought, he was swept into a strange, desolate place. He slowly woke up and hurriedly put a hand to his head. My head hurts. What the hell is this? Why is it so hot here? Curious, he reached out to touch the ground and was shocked to realize it was ash. Xian paused, sweat pouring down like a stream. He reflexively looked up and realized. It's over. That's right, if I fell into a portal. Looking around at the sea of fire, a sense of dread welled up in his heart. Is this the inside of a dungeon? He saw something fall right in front of him. He bit his lip, unwilling to accept his fate, and gripped the stone in his hand tightly. Then, while swinging his hand to throw the stone, he angrily screamed, "It's too hot, damn it." Next, sweat poured from him like a fountain as he blew on his palms. Damn it, so this isn't a dream after all. A dungeon that even Neo's soul has to prepare all its resources to deal with. Xian looked at the marks on his palms and muttered to himself. This is definitely volcanic ash, right? It feels like sand being scorched in a fire. If I don't escape quickly, my lungs are going to be roasted. Then he knelt down and tore his pant leg. He used it as a mask and tied it on. All right, if there's a way into a dungeon, there must be a way out. The most likely location is the highest mountain peak located inside this dungeon. Near that peak, he looked at the volcano burning in front of him, sweating, and thought to himself. Either way, if I just stand here, I'll die from the heat and this ash. Right now is the best time, since there aren't any demonic beasts in sight. I'll cross the shortest path at the fastest speed I can. Xian thought, then immediately ran off quickly. He looked determined, affirming to himself. That's right, I'm a guy who never knows the meaning of giving up. After that, he agilely jumped from below onto the cliffside and sighed in relief. That was close, but when he saw the spot where he was standing crack, he cursed angrily. Damn it. He was drenched in sweat, reaching forward desperately. Please, please, I beg you. Pieces of rock fell into the flowing magma, but he was luckier, managing to grab onto a nearby cliff wall. He braced himself against the wall and shouted at the top of his lungs. This damn lava doesn't scare me one bit. With the strength of his ancestors, Xian successfully cleared the jaws of death, his heavy panting echoing incessantly. Next, he angrily clenched his hand into a fist. Then he furrowed his brow and screamed, Park Manho, you bastard. Once I get out of here, you're dead for sure. After a moment of venting his anger, he regained his composure. Getting angrier only made the heat feel worse. Damn it all. Xian clenched his fist with determination, a stream of thoughts flooding his mind. I must survive this at all costs. I'll struggle with every ounce of strength I have to make it back. Just 4 more times. It seemed he now possessed a tremendous iron will. He scanned the terrain ahead and whispered to himself, just 4 more jumps and I'll be there. Don't stop, just keep moving, don't overthink it. My life in a dump like this, I will absolutely never give up. It will never end here. With all his courage, Xian leaped forward. But what awaited him was the massive maw of a creature emerging from beneath the scorching lava. Xian was like a tasty morsel that couldn't be missed, and he was swallowed whole by the creature. After successfully snatching its meal, it dove rapidly back into the lava. Before his eyes were bubbles of fire, boiling frantically from the intense heat. An image of a giant crocodile moving across the surface of the lava flow appeared. At the same time, a gentle stream of energy moved from the monster's body. Xian, sweating like a fountain, hung suspended and pointed downward. This is insane. Why is it so hot? Even volcanic ash is melting down there. Then he muttered to himself, I vaguely guessed it now. It turns out I can actually control volcanic ash too. That's what saved my life, but he only felt pain as he crashed hard onto the body of the giant crocodile. Lying on its coarse skin, he thought wearily, isn't this too hot? This dungeon's environment is even more toxic than the monsters themselves. My nose feels like it's being toasted to a crisp by the heat and this ash. I can't breathe anymore. My consciousness is fading. Xian lay face down on the ground, murmuring softly, am I dying? Suddenly, he clenched his hand. Then he struggled to lift his body. Less than a minute after declaring he would survive, he hadn't even had a girlfriend yet. Dying like this was truly frustrating. He stomped his foot hard against the ground. While casting his skill, Xian narrowed his eyes and offered, Lord Yama, my apologies, but please just take this crocodile's skin bag in my stead for now. Only the shrill, painful cry of the giant crocodile could be heard. As he glared angrily, a deep voice suddenly boomed. You possess a rather interesting ability. Startled, Xian looked around. What is that voice, Lord Yama? The owner of the voice exclaimed with amusement. Controlling sand? That's quite something. But Xian immediately shouted, like hell it is. An image of a person plummeting from midair straight toward the giant crocodile appeared. An old man with a smile on his face emerged. Xian spoke up. Is that old man falling? Daoden, with an excited expression, dove down like an arrow. Daoden gripped the hilt of his sword tightly. He jumped down with a strong look of intrigue. Xian watched the scene with wide eyes, thinking, it's coming. Daoden struck the giant crocodile's head like a cannonball, sending rocks and debris flying. The pressure sent Xian's entire body flying. A loud noise, like an earth-shattering explosion, rang out. A few shards of rock were flung into the boiling lava flow. Xian hid behind a rock, trying to keep from being blown away. A shrill scream echoed through the space. Xian, with a bewildered face, reached up to clutch his ear. What just happened? I can't hear anything anymore. Why is there such a terrifying shockwave? Did my eardrum tear? Who the hell is that old man? Suddenly, he seemed to realize something and looked up. Wait a minute, it's that old man from before, but first, where did the monster go? Before him was the cool, imposing figure of Daoden, standing in front of the giant crocodile. Watching this scene, Xian trembled, thinking to himself, he's on another level, completely leaving me in the dust. This isn't just the class of a strong awaken. He truly is an entity on an entirely different plane. At the same time, an image of a foot stepping forward appeared. Instantly, the ground beneath shattered. His voice boomed simultaneously. What is it? While Xian stared, Daoden asked in a low voice, I asked what your name is. He then reminded him, I'll give you 3 seconds to answer. Daoden began counting down. 3, 2. Those footsteps continued to close in. 1. Xian remained seated, staring wide-eyed at the opponent. He appeared right in front of him, announcing, time's up. Daoden reached behind and gripped his weapon's hilt. If you don't intend to open your mouth, then? Xian thought with a start. I can hear him now. With pupils flashing red, he said in a low voice, die. Xian finally realized the situation and yelled urgently, wait, stop. I don't know what's going on, but please spare my life. Daoden was surprised to realize. So you aren't a mute after all. He then reiterated, I just asked what your name is. Xian immediately replied, my name is Xian. Daoden turned away, sneering, Xian, what a silly name. Xian grimaced and pouted. Silly, who knows if that old man's name is any better to be criticizing mine. Suddenly, he slammed his sword into the ground, creating a sound that echoed throughout the space. Xian was so scared he squeezed his eyes shut, while Daoden spoke nonchalantly, Daoden. My name is Daoden. Still shocked, he frowned and questioned, what do you think you're doing? He casually asked back, doing what is what? Xian shouted angrily, every time you open your mouth you call me stupid. Why do you like threatening me like this? I'm very grateful that you saved my life, but I haven't done anything wrong. Daoden didn't even listen to the end and cut him off. Hey, idiot. From what I can see, you've fallen into a trap. Although dissatisfied, Xian was curious to see his actions. He's ignoring me. What is that? Daoden didn't hide it and explained. That's a phenomenon that occurs when mana in a dungeon is overloaded. The dungeon will create another entrance to protect itself and eject the excess mana through that crack. At the same time, it will drag any living creature inside. That, called a trap. He then gave a cheerful thumbs up. An ordinary person will never see one of those in their whole life. You really are unlucky, kid. Xian, being insulted to his face, frowned and cursed. Damn Manho, you bastard. At the same time, Daoden said, hey, you fool. Hearing that, he turned furious. I told you not to call me a fool anymore. He ignored him and turned Xian's head to the side. Let me show you why you're stupid. Xian asked with a blank look. What? He smirked and proposed. Now pour mana into your eyes and focus. He was suspicious. What are you trying to do? Daoden didn't explain, just made him follow. Shut your mouth and do as I say. Increase the purity of your mana. Imagine you are seeing with mana instead of your naked eyes, and feel that mana flow. Within his pupils, a completely different scene appeared. Seeing it, his sweat poured out endlessly. What the hell is that? Daoden behind him said in a serious tone. Looks like you finally see it. That's a monster with the ability to turn invisible. Prey that doesn't know anything will be devoured before they understand why they're dead, just like you. Xian's face turned pale and he thought to himself. Something like that was right next to me, yet I didn't feel any presence or danger. If this old man hadn't helped me, I would have died without even understanding what was happening. Saved twice, he still glanced over with an unconvinced look. Xian looked at Daoden, curiously wondering, how strong is this guy anyway? He tentatively asked, exactly who are you? Daoden turned and snapped, are you truly stupid? I already told you I'm Daoden, you brat. Xian broke into a sweat and yelled, that's not it. Who are you to possess such terrifying strength, and where is this hellish place anyway? Daoden answered nonchalantly, in a dungeon, and now it's my hunting ground. Surprised, Xian blurted out, a hunting ground? Daoden nodded. That's right, a hunting ground. Still want to know who I am? He tilted his head back provocatively. Then use those eyes of yours and see for yourself. Suddenly, the space around them shook violently. The volcano felt like it was about to erupt. Xian covered his ears and gritted his teeth, questioning, what is this? He looked up with a blank face. What the hell is that old man doing? Seeing the sight above him, Xian frowned and shouted, "What the hell is going on?" At the same time, Daoden's voice called out, "Hey, you idiot." He wore an excited expression and smirked. "If you still have any value, then find a way to survive on your own." Seeing Daoden make a pile of lava rocks fall on him, Xian yelled, "You crazy old man." He then gritted his teeth. Damn it, how are these bastards running so fast? At the same time, something flew and grazed his arm. It didn't stop, instead continuing to rush past his heel. Xian clutched his injured arm and frowned. Damn it, these fast-foot monsters, they're so fast that no matter how much I run, I can't escape them. Why do they keep aiming to bite my left side? He then used all his strength to point his index finger forward and unleash a move. But his opponent wasn't a weakling, so it immediately struck back. He took the rapid-fire hits and immediately covered his face. Xian, sweating like a fountain, grimaced and thought, "Damn it, whether I use sand or the god's eye, I can't keep up. This sucks. What should I do now? If this keeps up, I'm done for. That old man saved me twice already. If I die here now, I really am a true idiot." Suddenly a voice spoke out. "Hey, do you not intend to answer?" Xian wondered with a confused expression. "What?" Daoden pointed at his face and frowned. "You brat." Xian thought, "What is he mumbling about?" Daoden lost patience. "Are you mute?" Xian thought, "My ears must be damaged. I can't hear very well." Then he became determined, affirming to himself that he had to find a way to see an enemy the naked eye couldn't catch. Xian held his head and urged himself, "Think you have to think of something, you idiot." At that moment, a stream of thought appeared, startling him. "Let me show you exactly why you are so stupid. Pour mana into your eyes and focus. Increase the purity of your mana. Don't look with your eyes anymore. Look as if you are seeing with mana itself." Xian, with pupils flashing amber, whispered, "Feel the mana." Suddenly, an image of a creature with red eyes appeared before his eyes, rushing forward. Xian, rather than being afraid, decisively tore it apart. He raised his eyebrows, reminding himself, "Sense the magical power radiating from those monsters. Look with mana, not with eyes. When you see their mana closing in, launch a counterattack at the closest distance." He looked back, and a thought simultaneously appeared in his mind. That old man, could it be? Did he calculate this all the way to this step? Xian used his ability and shouted, "Who exactly are you, you old geezer?" Daoden slashed through the monster and exclaimed excitedly, "So fun, so exciting. It's been a long time since my blood felt this hot." Boiling lava was flung in every direction, and a massive sound echoed throughout the space. He didn't seem to want to stop, smirking. "More, give me more." Then Daoden unleashed a powerful attack, slicing the giant crocodile in half. "Come and get me, all of you." Before Daoden's attack, the beast collapsed right in front of him. Daoden turned his back and walked away arrogantly. What a pity. Finally, he swung his sword to end its life. Daoden then walked away quietly. "So disappointing, I had just finished warming up. Why are the monsters in the dungeon so few these days? I miss the old days." Xian gasped, eyes wide with amazement. "Terrifying, I'm starting to feel sorry for the monsters." He stood there stunned. "He took care of that giant beast just like that. I'm speechless, I don't know what else to say." He suddenly laughed heartily. "But it seems there are no more monsters left, right?" Unexpectedly, a tremor extinguished his budding smile. Damn it! A massive surge of power was released into the air. The earthquake shook the ground, making him unable to stand steady. Nauseated, he collapsed and emptied his stomach. Xian wiped his mouth and curiously asked, "What the hell was that sound? What's next?" Daoden's face hardened coldly. "The roar of the final boss." He suddenly spoke up. "The final boss?" he answered in a low voice. "Every dungeon has a boss, the source of the whole area, the strongest in the dungeon." Daoden observed what was gradually appearing in the shadows. "And that is exactly why I am here." Xian's eyes widened, unable to hide his astonishment. "The final boss, that creature is." His lips curled into a smirk. "You finally decided to show your face." Before Daoden, a giant beast flew out of the surge of power. Red Drake. Xian's smile vanished, his eyes glued to it. "A red drake? Isn't that just a dragon?" On the contrary, the old man couldn't hide his excitement. "Unfortunately, no, but at the very least it's a B rank." His voice began to stammer. "B rank at the very least, that would mean that the massive, aggressive figure appearing before us is its territory." Hearing this, Daoden patted his head in mock praise. "A brat like you actually knows about territories?" Xian lowered his voice, his face turning serious. "I've only heard about it. Monsters from B rank and up have their own unique traits, just like humans." His eyes never left the red drake, just like how awakened individuals are classified by rank. "If they possess a red territory, they're combat types." Xian was in the middle of his sentence when it began to move. "And those with a blue territory, like that one over there, are." The red drake spread its massive wings and unleashed a burst of icy energy toward them. He panicked, completely frazzled. "A magic type? Damn it, that's insanely powerful." Unexpectedly, Daoden moved fast, swinging his sword twice to create a cross-shaped slash that tore right through it. Xian stood with his mouth agape, watching the shattered shards of ice fall like rain. Time seemed to stand still before his eyes, rendering everything meaningless. All the experience and knowledge he possessed. The fierce battle unfolding before his very eyes, became entirely trivial in the face of this old man. Deodan followed up with another slash directly down the red drake's spine. It immediately raised its sharp claws, intending to strike back, but the old man blocked it effortlessly. Even more surprising was the luring the tiger from the mountain tactic. Deodan had allowed himself to be caught right in its claws. The red drake opened its massive jaws, preparing to unleash its ultimate attack. In this situation, the old man just cracked a sadistic grin. Deodan simply used one hand to channel mana and touch its body. It was truly the smile of someone who had never known defeat. "That hurts, doesn't it, Drake?" He gripped his sword tightly with both hands. "Don't worry, I'll personally help you put an end to that pain." Then he swung down, knocking the red drake to the ground. "Because today is the day you die." Seeing that things weren't looking good, Xian immediately took to his heels. "Damn it, today is my death day, if anything." Behind him, unidentified streams of mana were flying chaotically. "These crazy old men, I don't know what's going on, but couldn't they just talk it out calmly?" With no other choice, Xian channeled mana into both hands to create a protective barrier. He tensed up, struggling to hold his ground. Under that immense pressure, his feet were sinking deeper and deeper into the soil. "Seriously, go somewhere else to fight. Just the aftershocks alone are enough to kill someone." He struggled with all his might to escape this impossible predicament. On the contrary, Deodan, hovering in midair, seemed incredibly excited. "This is so fun, absolutely exhilarating." He sat majestically on the red drake's head, carelessly steering it. "Feels like we're at an amusement park, doesn't it, Red Drake?" Following that, Deodan thrust his sword into its head, causing the red drake to collapse. The residual mana from the blow whipped towards Xian at lightning speed. Everything happened so fast that he stood stunned for several seconds. Just as it was about to reach him, he finally snapped out of it. Damn it. But it seemed too late. He was already blasted away. Xian went tumbling across the ground like a ball. Then he was thrown off the ground and sent flying through the air. Xian looked back with eyes filled with desperation and regret. His pupils began to fade for a fleeting moment. The fierce battle continued to rage ahead, and it seemed like no one noticed a small fry like him. Deodan raised his fist frantically. "Is that all you've got, Drake?" With a single blow, he forced its head down into the ground. "You call yourself a dungeon boss, but you spend all day bowing your head like that? You're a disgrace to the title of final boss." The red drake, infuriated, gathered mana in its mouth. Deodan became even more excited. "So, bosses know how to use moves like this too, huh?" An immense wave of power was unleashed from the red drake's mouth. It tore through the wind, hurtling straight toward him. As the attack concluded, the red drake's mouth billowed with steam, its face looking as if a great burden had been lifted. But Deodan's voice echoed from somewhere, leaving it bewildered. "Looking for me. I've been wandering the desert for a year just to catch you." His sword flew from out of nowhere, embedding itself firmly into the red drake. It opened its mouth and let out a pained roar. He stood tall, gripping the sword in his hand. "My goal was to use your heart to forge this crayon blade." His eyes blazed and his voice turned cold. "Now die." The sword gradually sank deeper into the red drake's heart. A bright red flow of mana was gradually released. Simultaneously, it wrapped around the weapon. The mana was fully absorbed into the sword, making it glow. Deodan's gaze never left the upgrade process. Once it had absorbed all the mana, the sword seemed to have donned a new, more powerful armor. He held it in his hand and admired it. Deodan let out a satisfied laugh. "You've gotten stronger again." Suddenly, Xian's voice rang out from somewhere, catching his attention. "Talking to your sword again? Have you completely lost your mind?" Fortunately, he managed to crawl back up. "But to take down that drake, you're a terrifyingly strong old man." Deodan replied nonchalantly, "You idiot, you're still alive." By now, he had regained his composure. "Yeah, I barely made it." But he recalled the moment he was thrown off the cliff edge. His mind had gone blank, unable to react to anything. A second later, he slapped his own face to regain his focus. Xian raised his fist to channel mana. He fell into the sand support he had just created. Xian had narrowly escaped death, and he didn't forget to indulge in a bit of self-praise. "Damn it, I survived again. I'm not exactly a pushover myself, honestly." Returning to the present, he sat up and began talking. "I got beaten to a pulp by the aftershocks from this crazy old man, but my reflexes improved, and that's how I stayed alive." Deodan bared his teeth in a sneer. "For an idiot, that's not bad." With that, he hauled him up like a puppy. "The boss is dead. This dungeon is about to collapse. We need to get out of here quickly." He made a face of dissatisfaction and questioned him. "Why are you grabbing me anyway?" Deodan's smile didn't provide any comfort, instead giving the onlooker a sense of indescribable unease. It was exactly as expected. He powerfully threw Xian into a vortex. "Goodbye, you idiot." All he could do was curse. "Hey, you crazy old man, you bastard, you're even worse than Park Manho." No sooner had he finished than he appeared in a different dimension. It turned out the vortex was a spatial barrier gate. He flew out of it and rolled onto the sand. Xian got a mouthful of sand and coughed violently. "Where is this?" Deodan then stepped out leisurely. "Why are you asking such a strange question? We're out of the dungeon. The crack created when the dungeon collapsed was the exit." His voice was weak and trembling. "Then why didn't you just walk out?" But he ignored him and spoke in a deep voice. "Listen closely, you idiot. His massive, imposing figure stood before him. I need your sand manipulation energy, but with you being this weak, you're of no use. So I'm giving you a choice. He pointed in one direction. If you go this way, you'll reach Neo Soul. Do you want to go back there and continue your old life? Then he pointed at himself. Or will you follow me and become a slightly less incompetent idiot? Xian, naive and still unable to grasp the situation, asked. What on earth are you talking about? If I follow you, how long will it take? Deoden became more somber. I don't know. Could be a few months, a few years, maybe even a few decades. We'll know when we get there. He was stunned by the old man's words. So choose right now. Deoden didn't stop pushing the fighting spirit within him. Return home to your familiar, easy life, or embark on a gamble where the death rate is 99%. His voice was decisive and firm, forcing him to hesitate. Well, make your choice. Xian let out an arrogant laugh, making his choice. Are you messing with me? He pointed a finger forward in challenge. Hey, old man, you've lost your mind. As if he had just heard a funny story, he replied with a mocking tone. You're telling me to leave my home, my warm bed, and the shade to wander around this scorching desert with you. But what he got in return was Deoden's firm, unshakable attitude. Yes, that is exactly what I mean. He let out a sigh of resignation. Then there's nothing left to discuss. Xian walked silently past him. I'll follow you. He lowered his voice. I've always been the type to retaliate against anyone I hate, but right now, I'm still too weak to get my revenge. Then he smiled and looked back over his shoulder. And that includes you too, old man. He stood before Deoden's massive frame and rattled on. You're stronger than anyone I've ever met in my life, and I have a gut feeling that I'll never meet anyone stronger than you. He replied with a hearty laugh. That's exactly why I can say it with certainty. I'm certain you're going to die soon. Xian clenched his fist, brimming with intensity. I'm certain that if I follow you, I'll become stronger than anyone else. But Deoden laughed with contempt. That confidence of yours will be something you regret one day. Just wait and see. With that, he turned away decisively. Follow me, you idiot. It's a long way ahead. Xian ran after him. I told you not to call me an idiot. The sunlight filtered through thin layers of clouds, shining down on the harsh desert. Xian, drenched in dirty sweat, snapped. Can you slow down a bit? He stretched his arms out, trying to find a lifeline. Hey, old man, we've been walking for 6 hours straight. Take a break, come on. All he got in response was Deoden's cold back and silence. He clutched his head with both hands and screamed with all his might. So gloomy. Why don't you say a word? You're not some moody teenager. Why do your moods change so fast? By now, his eyes had lost focus and become glazed, lacking the energy to utter a word. It's too hot. 40 degrees, no, probably 50 degrees already. His legs felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds as he dragged them across the sand. This damn sand makes it impossible for me to walk. At this rate, I'll either die of heatstroke or dehydration. Xian began to collapse. I have no idea what the hell to do now. Deoden spoke up, breaking the silence. There is truly no one more foolish than you in this world. You have power in your hands, but you don't even know how to use 1% of it. He looked up, questioning. What do you mean? He kept walking while explaining. You have the ability to manipulate sand, yet you struggle to walk on it. You really are pitiful. Xian roared once again. It's easy for you to say. I only awakened a few days ago. He looked at him out of the corner of his eye. So what? Xian kept blathering, making Deoden grind his teeth in annoyance. I'm only F-rank. I'm not a high-level awakened like you. He turned back and sprayed water into his face. Stop saying such stupid things. What does it matter if you're F-rank or S-rank? Xian was stunned into silence by Deoden. Do you think everyone is born S-rank? If people like that actually exist, they're just lucky enough to have been blessed by the heavens. His face looked fierce. So what? Just because you weren't favored, you intend to live your whole life in surrender. Compared to others, you've already been blessed with too much. He stood there stunned, blessed. Deoden waved his hand and said softly, So quit whining and use your brain to figure out how to use your ability. What's the use of having healthy limbs when your head is empty? Then he placed a hand on Xian's shoulder. That is your ability. Deoden leaned in close and advised him sternly. Of course you have to be the one who understands it best. How to break through that hazy head of yours to mature, or how to use it, you have to find that out for yourself. Xian was moved to the point of tears. Suddenly he gripped his shoulder tightly. Clear, you idiot. If you can't figure it out on your own, just consider yourself dead. Xian screamed in pain and pleaded, I know, just loosen your grip. After that, he began to practice seriously. The sand under his feet began to swirl, and then followed his power to create a sphere that enveloped him. He looked around and assessed. The range of sand I can control is about 5 m. It's a bit meager, but I'm sure I can make it work. Xian took heavy steps, continuing to move forward. The sand sinks to my ankles like this. If I can solve this, it'll be a lot less draining. He decided to try a different approach. What if I compress the sand so it's really hard? Succeeding, he ran lightly over the sand surface. Great, it worked. My feet aren't sinking anymore. Walking is so much easier. But after only 3 steps, he had to stop and reflect. But it uses up an insane amount of mana. In the long run, this won't work at all. Xian lifted his feet and switched to a different plan. Or what if I try focusing mana into both feet? Now, walking is definitely much easier. He kept babbling in Deoden's ear. If I tweak this part just a little, but this isn't really using the ability, so next it will be... While he just faintly smiled and waited. Just a moment. He was also stumped by his enthusiasm, as he kept experimenting without ever giving up. That truly is the privilege of youth. He kept pondering. His rank was still F, but in terms of power and mana control, he had to be top tier. While Deoden was deep in thought, if it's that kid, it must be. He suddenly shouted happily. Success. He ran ahead to show off. Old man, look at this, look closely. I only used mana to control the sand touching my feet, and now walking is a breeze. Not only that, he held up his middle finger to mock him. An old man like you probably couldn't do this, right? Now I can walk around extremely comfortably. What do you think? He suddenly received a loving punch. Deoden's words carried a bit of frustration. What a nuisance. Don't waste your energy on useless tricks, you'll die. Seeing he was about to pass out, Deoden urged him on. There's no time. Move your legs, hurry, you idiot, breathe, breathe. His eyelids fluttered open, and in front of him was nothing but pitch-black darkness. Where is this? Deoden beside him was devouring a piece of delicious meat. You're awake. Idiot, I'm busy as hell and I'm wasting my time on you. He still tried to squeeze out a few words to retort. It's not like we're on vacation. My body is covered in wounds and injuries. Xian looked at the ugly thing lying in front of him. Dried meat. Deoden leaned back to rest. Eat while you listen to me. This is a story from back when I was young. He chewed while lowering his voice. Back then, even if you were weak or incompetent, you wouldn't reach the point of not being able to survive. Protecting the weak was even considered an honorable thing. Can you believe it? Xian listened quietly to Deoden's story. But as you can see, the world has changed. To you, this kind of world is normal, but to me, I've never been able to get used to it. He didn't forget to add a few more harsh words. If you want to die, just lie down and stay comfortable. If not, drag yourself along on your own 2 feet. Idiot. Xian sat up instantly. All right, I get it, I'm standing up. His eyes lingered on Deoden as if he had discovered something. This is... He followed the old man's back, lost in aimless thought. I knew he'd lived a long time, but not this long. I wonder how many years and memories he's accumulated. He couldn't help but have many questions in his heart, but he didn't dare speak them aloud. And here he is still gnawing on that piece of dried meat. Maybe he uses his saliva to soften it instead of chewing. Xian put the dried meat in his mouth, not forgetting to give Deoden a side-eye. In this water-starved desert, that must be the only way. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Seriously. He chewed while reflecting. Instead of giving me a fish, it seems more like he's teaching me how to fish. Done, he braced his hands behind him and stretched comfortably. But I've never even seen a fish before. In the quiet space, his voice rang out. Old man, give me another piece. But he was rejected by Deoden, who told him to shut his mouth. Suddenly, Xian let out a massive sneeze. He wrapped his arms around his shivering body, forgetting that nights in the desert were bone-chillingly cold. Before falling asleep, he didn't forget to badmouth him. And that senile old man, I couldn't catch a wink of sleep because he kept talking to his sword all night long. Deoden just kept sitting there, rambling on about the past. Oh, my old friend, that's right, that spot was perfect. Xian muttered a curse under his breath. This guy is insane. Before he could even finish his thought, Deoden provided the answer right in front of him, his throat parched. Is there not a single drop of water around here? Xian gritted his teeth, swallowing his anger. There he goes again, secretly drinking by himself without even letting me know. Immediately, he began licking the fabric bandaged around his arm. He was wringing out the dew from his clothes. No wonder he was soaked through all his gear while he slept. Xian switched from one arm to the other. Just you wait, you crazy old man. Once I get stronger, I'll pay you back. Suddenly, Deoden called out, Hey, idiot. He bit back angrily. I told you it's not idiot, it's fool. Deoden gave up, defeated by someone as stubborn as Xian. Fine, whatever, fool. Do you feel anything yet? He stood there blankly, trying to sense something. Feel what? Xian looked up at the sky. This vibration is... His face began to tighten. There's more than one. A second later, a pack of hyenas with eyes as red as blood appeared, surrounding the two of them. Deoden seemed quite familiar with this mob. Large-horned hyenas. These guys usually hunt at night, but were running into them at dawn. In the midst of their plight, he didn't forget to poke fun at the fool. Do you think you can handle it on your own? Or do you need my help again? With that, the pack of large-horned hyenas began to swarm in and attack. Xian, full of fighting spirit, pointed forward and laughed arrogantly. No need. He shouted firmly, because I'll survive this on my own. Grains of sand began to gather at Xian's fingertips. He launched a barrage of attacks at the pack of large-horned hyenas. A glint of light flashed in his eyes as he looked behind him. He flicked his hand, creating sand arrows on his back that pointed straight at them. And the harsh reality extinguished the initial confidence of these crazed beasts. Damn it, why are there so many? He was exhausted and out of breath. If I don't get bitten to death, I'll die from mana exhaustion first. I need a plan, I need a plan. His brain began to work at full capacity. Right now, power isn't the most important thing. I need effective attacks that conserve mana. He started to calm down and think. How can I fight while using the least amount of mana? Think, come on. Suddenly, a large-horned hyena lunged forward and bit into Xian's arm. He struggled frantically and didn't forget to curse. Hey, you demon, I'm trying to think here. You coward daring to bite me. Xian looked at the wound on his arm and gritted his teeth in anger. That psycho put a hole right in my arm. It looks like a wind tunnel. Blurring out that phrase made him freeze. A wind tunnel. Meanwhile, the pack of large-horned hyenas kept coming in waves to attack. They were getting closer and closer from behind. He was still lost in his own mutterings. That's it, a hole. I just need to create a hole. Then he broke into a savage grin. Xian crazily looked up at the pack of large-horned hyenas. That's right. Why go through the trouble of blowing their whole heads off? Whether they explode or just get a hole punched through them, they're dead either way. He faced the adversity without wavering in his heart. In battle, mana is your lifeline. If you panic and waste mana, you're just killing yourself faster. Xian continued to control the sharp spikes to attack in one go, sending the whole pack to the afterlife, using the least amount of mana to achieve the most effective kill. Fighting is all about calculating the cost. After that, he turned to observe Deoden. Look at that old man, just slowly killing them one by one. Even though his hand was deep in a hyena's mouth, Deoden laughed loudly. What are you doing? It's just like scratching an itch. He only had to twist his arm and the creature's jaw practically fell off. You damn dog. Alone, Deoden faced the entire pack of large-horned hyenas without flinching. Can't let a biting dog live, right? All of you go die here. Instead, he bared his teeth in an excited grin. He couldn't dodge in time and could only hold up his hands to try and block. Wait, that old man is doing it again. Deoden, a fiend, swung his sword down. It was truly a massacre. A stream of pitch-black mana was unleashed with terrifying power. Its destructive force was so great that it blew away the entire pack of large-horned hyenas, except for him, who was still struggling to hold his ground. Finally done, his face was pale and drained of blood. Deoden is truly insane. I swear there are still people nearby. The attack had left a long trail and a massive crater. Xian stood rooted to the spot. Are you even human? You did that without even using a skill. His face relaxed, now more vigilant. Damn it, from now on I should be careful. The slightest slip-up and I'm a goner. Meanwhile, Deoden stood on the belly of a large-horned hyena. You're making me deaf. You're the pack leader, right? Why are you panicking so much as a leader? It struggled and pointed its horns straight at him, determined to take him down with it. Deoden still had time to calmly assess his prey. That's defense, huh? Damn, turns out you're rank B or higher. Suddenly, a brilliant surge of power was launched from the sharp horn to attack him. Xian frantically screamed, "Old man, look out." But on that side, he had already gently grabbed the horn with his bare hand. He was stunned once again, his hand still suspended in midair. Look out for what? He let go of the hyena's horn. That was actually a bit tingly. It really did help loosen up my shoulder muscles. After that, Deoden enthusiastically began to use mana. Eyes closed, now die. A single punch from him sent it to heaven in an instant. Xian chuckled, indifferent to the rain of gore. Seriously, why do I care about others? It's better to just ignore that monster and save myself the headache. He donned the loot he had acquired. Old man, it's all cleared up. Should we head out? Deoden was still tinkering with the horn. You're still alive, you fool. Xian asked curiously, You're going to carry that thing? He smiled and replied, Large-horned hyena horns are actually quite useful. They have lightning attributes. If you know how to craft them, they make excellent weapons. Then Deoden threw a dagger into the animal fur he was holding. Xian held it in his hand, filled with curiosity. It's a dagger. Meanwhile, he was still rummaging through his inventory. From now on, fend for yourself. Don't expect any more help from me. Deoden held up a piece of meat and meticulously instructed. Their muscles are highly toxic. You'll die if you eat them. But the meat on the flank isn't poisonous. Seeing his hesitant look, he urged, Why are you starring? The sun is almost up. Move it, you fool. The sunlight appeared, signaling the end of a long night. Xian continued his journey. Yes, sir. He chewed on a piece of dried meat while happily humming a tune. This is great. His chest was covered with meat from the large-horned hyena pack. He was a bit thirsty, but at least he had meat to eat. His life seemed much easier now, and with a desert footwork skill, getting around was a breeze. Xian couldn't resist standing before Deoden and provoking him. Are you jealous? Once we're out, don't overexert yourself. He had even learned how to dodge his blows. I dodged that one this time. Who would have thought the joy wouldn't even last 3 seconds before he got hit again? Deoden's voice had a hint of frustration. What a psycho. I'm exhausted from walking and he's just acting arrogant, all because of that pathetic skill. Deoden's voice had a hint of frustration. What a psycho. I'm exhausted from walking and he's just acting arrogant, all because of that pathetic skill. He wasn't willing to let it go and called out. Hey, I'm talking to you. Where are you looking? Wait, is that feeling? Water vapor. Xian watched Deoden quietly. I'm not imagining it. He's looking that way too. That means. He followed his gaze. Is it really there, right behind this, an oasis? An abnormally large sand dune rose up in the middle of the desolate desert. Both of them stepped over it together. Xian cheered excitedly. It's actually real, a place I'd only heard of in rumors. He stretched his shoulders, feeling a burden lifted. There's the oasis. Right after that, he slid down the slope to get to the bottom. Water. How many days has it been since I had a drop of water in my stomach? Deoden just clicked his tongue. Xian was incredibly enthusiastic and put all his effort into running. Finally, I see it. Finally. He barely thought about it and plunged his face into the water. The cool sensation immediately dispelled the heat from his skin, making him feel incredibly comfortable. Water is soaking into me. This is amazing. In his heart, he silently complained. In this damn 50-degree-Celsius desert, after all these days, this cool feeling is finally sinking into my body. His eyes suddenly froze, so happy. From deep within the water pool, something seemed to shine into his eyes. What's that glowing thing? It's too bright, but it feels so warm. Not long after, Xian suddenly felt his eyelids grow heavy as lead. Why am I feeling so sleepy? Right at that moment, Deoden's roar echoed in his ear. Wake up, you idiot. He came thundering toward him. The light under the pool grew brighter and brighter, because from beneath the deep water, a giant anglerfish was rising up with its mouth wide open. Deoden lunged forward and accurately grabbed his shirt. The very moment he used his strength to pull him back, the massive fish erupted from the water. Its snap missed, but Xian was terrified beyond belief. Deoden let him go, then took a stance and jumped high into the air. He tightened his grip on his sword hilt, then swung down with a lethal blow. The water in the pool was sent flying by his power, drenching him completely. Unbelievable, so this is the thing I'd only heard rumors about. Xian stared blankly, looking up at what was slowly emerging from behind the screen of water. A rainbow. Deoden brutally threw the fin he had just plucked off. That's a sand-jaw monster. It uses the light on its forehead to lure prey, then devours them. Suddenly he stopped talking, his face looking rather unpleasant. And just as expected, a second later, Deoden delivered a thunderous strike. He subconsciously touched his throbbing cheek. Deoden roared angrily. Did you throw everything I taught you in the trash? You idiot, just because you adapted a little bit, you think you're hot stuff now. He continued to shout furiously. Idiots like you are the first to die in this desert. Did you hear me, you bastard? Xian said nothing, only obediently whispering, yes. Deoden sighed, his tone softening slightly. Skin it. He was slightly surprised. Skin it. He lowered his voice to explain. It's a rank sea monster. Its belly skin is soft and durable. It'd make a great cloak, so cut it up and make one. Xian asked naively, you need a cloak. Deoden, who had just calmed down, was provoked into a rage again. It's not for me, make it for yourself. You damn idiot, why is your brain getting less intelligent by the day? There must be a reason. Did someone use a petrification spell on your left brain and corrosive magic on your right brain? Xian felt like his ears were about to give out, but he could only miserably say, I'm sorry and also, he whispered, although things had changed a lot. This creature looks exactly like a species of fish that used to live on Earth. Deoden didn't argue further and turned away directly. I guess you've never seen a fish before, so look closely, or I'm leaving you behind. Xian thought to himself, that's a fish. His eyes involuntarily widened. It's the first time I've ever seen one. That fish is truly terrifying. After that, he took out his knife and slowly tried stabbing into the fish's belly. Deoden, seeing this, teased leisurely, want me to scratch the fish's back for you? Maybe it'll be so happy it comes back to life? Right. Xian jumped. Forget it, I can do it myself. Saying that, he looked up at it once more. It was tougher than he thought. If that's the case then, he tried pouring a bit of mana into the knife. Focus, I have to focus. He began to meticulously carve a firm incision, channeling mana into the blade to increase its cutting power. Xian widened his eyes, thinly shaving the fin to use as a sewing needle. He mumbled, and if I take the tendons from the meat to use as thread. His eyes suddenly flared with light. This is. But then he miserably knelt down. My life is over. Deoden, seeing this, cruelly mocked. You've turned the fish into a pile of trash. Xian, feeling unresigned, cursed. Damn it, there's still plenty of raw material here. Let's try again. Thus, he spent until midnight on it. The world was pitch black and he couldn't see a thing. But finally, he screamed excitedly. Done, it's finally perfectly finished. He muttered to himself. After 8 failures, it's finally done. This quality should be sellable, right? Welcome to the fashion boutique. Deoden slowly stood up. Hey, you idiot. Fearing his hard work was about to be snatched away, he growled. No way, I won't give it to you, it's mine. But he coldly brushed it aside. Stop babbling, eat this. Xian eyed the massive thing in Deoden's hand and suspiciously asked. Huh, what's this? He responded leisurely. Sandworm bile is an extremely rare medicinal ingredient. You are forbidden to leave even a drop. Eat it all for me. Xian nervously swallowed hard, wondering what would happen if he didn't eat it all. Deoden laughed heartily. Then you'll die. Saying that, he decisively threw it to him and urged, take it quickly, my hand is about to fall off. Xian was extremely frustrated and retorted, then just let it fall off. But being a coward, he only thought that silently. Then he eyed that giant piece of bile. After a few seconds of hesitation, he just closed his eyes and took a bite. All right, fine, damn it. It's medicine, after all. It tastes absolutely bitter, but it's better than getting beaten to death. After chewing for a while, he suddenly stopped grimacing. What is this? Xian bowed his head and took another huge bite. It felt like he was eating clouds. How come I don't feel full no matter how much I eat? He was now very focused on eating. Well, thanks to that, I finished it all. Deoden suddenly spoke up. Hey, idiot. He bared his teeth in a grin. It's time for you to burn to ashes. Xian turned around, confused. What the hell are you talking about? Just as he said that, he suddenly clutched his throat and threw his head back, screaming. Xian discovered a strange heat surging within his own body. What is this? My body is burning up, and it's not just a simple fever. The heat grew increasingly intense. His body and his mana were all going haywire. It hurts so much. It feels like a sun is thrashing around in my gut. If this keeps up, I'm actually going to. While he roared in agony, Deoden simply sat nearby and calmly stated, Suck it up, you idiot. He cast his gaze toward the water in the distance. Everything is just like this oasis. It will soon vanish with the wind and sand as if it never existed. Deoden muttered in a low voice. But right here, sandworms will regenerate and then they will return. Life just follows that cycle. By now, Xian was in so much pain he was writhing like a hooked fish. No, damn you, you old geezer. He screamed in anguish. Stop sitting there with your sentimental philosophy. Please save me. He slowly cast his eyes toward him. Seeing the other's indifference, Xian grew even more furious and shouted, Old man, I'm going to kill you. Deoden didn't bother to argue and just narrowed his eyes. Shut your mouth so I can sleep. He continued to struggle in the throes of agonizing pain. When he groggily regained consciousness, the sky was already bright. Where am I? Deoden was hanging upside down somewhere, looking down at him. Finally awake, you idiot. Xian, just waking up, was startled out of his wits. Damn it, you old bastard, you scared the hell out of me. He simply asked one question. Did you sleep well, you fool? Hearing that, he pouted in dissatisfaction. Sleep, I was unconscious, you know that. Deoden replied calmly. Is that so? Well, how does your body feel now? Only then did Xian slowly begin to sense his own body. My body, it feels the same as always. In the middle of his sentence, he paused and tried to clench his fist. Wait, that's not right. Xian suddenly realized his body felt as light as a grain of sand. His muscles were as supple as steel wire, and his mana was surging like a violent storm. He blinked in confusion. What is this? Why am I suddenly this strong? What happened? Deoden lowered his voice to reveal the truth. Thanks to that sandworm bile. He turned his head to look at him. Sandworm bile is an extremely precious medicine for those crossing the desert. It gives you the strength to endure the scorching sun and the sandstorms with the caravans. It's worth an entire mana crystal. Deoden continued with a satisfied tone. It seems the medicine worked better than expected. Congratulations, you idiot. Xian was utterly shocked to hear this. You actually gave me something that precious. Deoden replied without a second thought. It's because you're so damn weak. Since I went to the trouble of dragging you along, you at least need to be of some use. Xian, now incredibly excited, ran over. Got it. I'll be really useful. Versatile Xian, reliable Xian. The old man dismissively waved him off. Shut your mouth and eat. You're not going anywhere until you finish this worm. The sun had risen higher, and the heat began to dominate once again. Deoden touched the barren skeletal frame and muttered. This monster had more meat than I thought. I've been stuffing my face for 4 days straight. Having said that, he turned to look at him. Now, shall we get going again, you idiot? The corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Then he shouted with great enthusiasm. Understood. They hadn't gone far before a sandstorm came crashing down upon them. Xian draped his homemade cloak over himself and took leisurely steps forward. He chewed away as he walked. A sandstorm, huh? Thanks to this new ability, it feels like nothing but a cool breeze. Then he cast his eyes toward Deoden's back. The old man was still walking briskly without needing a rest. He mumbled to himself. He hasn't said a single word in days. Is he going through menopause or something? Xian turned suspicious. They had been walking for 2 weeks without stopping. Did the old man even know the way? A desert ant the size of a house jumped out from behind him, but he was only worried and frustrated. Damn it! I hope this crazy old man isn't lost. It shrieked loudly in his ear, annoying him so much that he instinctively swung his arm around and threw a punch. Shut your trap, you little shrimp. Xian continued to grumble. How much further do we have to go? No sooner had he finished speaking than he paused slightly and craned his neck to look behind him. Seeing the desert ant with its head dented in, Xian said nonchalantly, Pretty tough, aren't you? Deep down, he felt a bit bored. I intended to just pass through in peace, but it seems that's going to be hard this time. Xian felt a swarm of desert ants approaching from all around. These guys seemed serious. He lowered his center of gravity and raised his hands. Fine then, if you want to play, hurry up and come at me. Xian channeled a massive amount of mana and slammed it into the ground. If you're late, you'll die by this old man's hand. Come on. The swarm of ants, which had been hidden by the desert, was forced to reveal their true forms by his gale. Xian squatted down, pointing a finger forward in praise. Good, you know how to listen. Sand bomb. Instantly, the sand around him exploded high into the air. Xian stood up, looking at the view completely engulfed in sand, and added, Anyway, a day with a sandstorm like this is actually quite interesting. Everywhere I look, it's just sand. As soon as he looked over and saw that Deoden had already run far ahead, he roared. Hey, old man, where the hell did you disappear to? Hey, old man, how could you abandon me and leave on your own? You villain. The sand dust dispersed, revealing the desert ants inside. His angry voice echoed everywhere. Have you ever seen anyone live without a single friend or colleague? No wonder you're still skulking around alone at your age. He hurried to run toward Deoden, whispering under his breath. If you heard that, I apologize. Xian's eyes widened as he muttered. He probably couldn't hear a word. His sensing range was within a 10-meter radius. Normally, he was always on guard and never let his vigilance slip. Thus, if a monster appeared nearby, he could respond immediately. However, what he sensed just now felt a little different. What he discovered this time felt more like a terrifying presence than just a monster. Immediately afterward, a swarm of desert ants tore through the sand and rushed out. He wiped the sweat from under his chin and couldn't help but curse loudly. Damn it, why are there so many? Where did this giant army crawl out of? I have no idea. Xian glanced at the figure in the distance and shouted. Old man, this crowd, the number of them. In the distance, Deoden remained calm, silently taking it all in. But in the blink of an eye, Xian raised his hands to gather magic, gritting his teeth as he muttered. No, how much longer am I going to call out, old man, save me, like a little kid? He reached out to create sand dunes, targeting the rushing desert ants. The old man must have sensed them already. If so, this is a challenge he set for me. Xian stared at the swarm of desert ants and yelled. Damn you bugs, even if there are 1,000 or 10,000 of you, bugs are still just bugs. He waved his hand, and hundreds of sand arrows flew out, covering the entire swarm. Xian gritted his teeth, relentlessly controlling the sand to attack the desert ants. Suddenly, one desert ant broke through and charged straight at his face. Xian planted his hands on its body and flipped backward to dodge. Damn it, I take back what I just said. Why the hell are there so many of these bastards? He glared ferociously, clenching his fist and punching the desert ant as he screamed. Ganging up on the weak. You cowards, don't you have any conscience? If you're so good, come on and fight me one-on-one. Xian looked at the massive number of desert ants rushing in from above and muttered a curse. Right after that, the ground beneath them exploded upward. This is insane. It's literally an anthill. Dust rose high, covering the entire landscape. Xian stood on a boulder, broke through the mist, and soared straight into the air. He squinted his left eye, which was constantly bleeding, and looked down at the desert ants, thinking, it feels like I just fell straight into a giant ant nest. Then Xian turned his head to look up and said, First, I have to fly higher to assess the situation. It's a good thing you guys don't know how to fight in the air. Suddenly, his eyes widened as a force from behind pulled him down hard. He planted one hand on the rock beneath his feet, turned his head back, and saw desert ants piled on top of each other, chasing him from behind. He cried out in disbelief. Are you kidding me? Really? No way, how can this happen? A desert ant clamped its pincers onto one of Xian's legs, letting out a loud shriek. Using its strength, it dragged him down, and his whole body slammed hard into the ground. Xian let out a dry cough, blood constantly pouring out. He quickly turned his body, planted one hand on the ground, and struggled to sit up, his whole body shaking uncontrollably as he coughed relentlessly. He forced himself to lift his head to look off into the distance. Over there, Deoden had his arms crossed, completely ignoring the sound of Xian's voice ringing in his ear. Old man. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly, revealing his teeth as he exerted pressure. Xian smiled and looked straight in that direction. Just you wait and watch, old man, watch how I survive this. Deoden watched the sand flying upward and replied loudly, That's it, good spirit, you idiot. He silently watched the scene before him and sighed. Your ability is truly a blessing in this world that has turned into a desert. You can definitely use it to live a life that would make anyone envious. Deoden narrowed his eyes, the veins on his face bulging fiercely. But if that's the case, then everything will just end there. His voice echoed everywhere. You blockheaded idiots don't even understand why the world turned out this way. You're just obsessed with chasing illusions. Deoden thought of the mass-produced machines and whispered, An awakened by nature is someone who must learn, apply, and develop skills for themselves, not through some cookie-cutter factory standardization. He looked at the sand constantly exploding and splashing about, thinking, I still can't forget. Deoden crossed his arms and watched the sand constantly exploding below. I still can't forget that day. Before his eyes, the scene of buildings being swallowed by a sea of fire appeared. The horrific tragedy from 100 years ago. The entire city submerged in a blazing red inferno. How helpless I was back then. How many people died in vain right before my eyes. Along with the explosions, the fire quickly consumed all his colleagues, neighbors, and even his family members. Even his daughter was no exception. Deoden remembered the tiny hands of his daughter. I couldn't protect anything, like the most pathetic person on earth. I lost everything right before my eyes. His eyes watched as he gently annihilated the desert ants around him. But you are different. Deoden stared off in that direction, his lips moving slightly. You have the potential to become anyone. Dive into it and cross the boundary between life and death. The corners of his mouth curled up, gritting out each word until finally, Deoden saw him wave his hand, gently blowing away the desert ants around him, and added, You will become stronger than you are right now. His eyes flashed with a faint light, and a hint of madness flared on his face. You guys feel it too, don't you? You're all about to be done for. All around, the desert ants stared blankly at him. Immediately after that, with a loud shout from him, the sand from the ground gathered together. Compressed sand missile. It sounds simple and crude, but a sand missile shot straight at the desert ants gathering in front of him. He watched it head toward the swarm and said, "If I combine gravity, wind force, and all the energy I have." He spread his arms wide, joyfully watching it explode, knowing the power would increase tenfold. Xian looked straight ahead, so excited that the veins in his body were bulging. With this move, you're all finished. He raised his hands to control the sand missile and slammed it down. Before I get even stronger, you're all dead for sure if you can't kill me. In the distance, Daoden crossed his arms, his face clearly showing his joy. That brat is already this excited. Over there, Xian held his injured arm, his eyes watching vigilantly. The dust settled, revealing jagged craters in front of him. He clenched his fist and let out a smug laugh. Just as he was feeling smug, a pair of large mandibles clamped onto his waist from behind. "Old man, did you see that? I'm going to wipe out these bastards." Xian gritted his teeth, glaring back in disbelief. How is this possible? He looked up at the sky and yelled in suspicion. Why couldn't I sense them at all? Xian used his bloodied hands to grab the jaws that were clamping down. Invisibility. No, how could these shrimps use such high-level skills? If it's not that, then it's poison. He gritted his teeth, his face fierce, and roared. No wonder. I've been having trouble controlling it since a while ago. Is it a type of poison that clogs mana flow? He gritted his teeth, his face fierce, and roared. No wonder. I've been having trouble controlling it since a while ago. Is it a type of poison that clogs mana flow? A pincer from behind struck the back of his head hard, knocking him unconscious. A while later in the darkness, Xian opened his eyes and cursed under his breath. Damn it. He cast his eyes around in confusion. What kind of place is this? Damn ants, is this their nest? Suddenly, Xian looked up and saw a larva quickly crawling toward him. He looked at them with uncertainty, wondering if it was because the larvae all around were constantly crawling toward his arms. It used its sharp mandibles to bite hard into his arm. Xian looked up at the stone wall, lost in thought. I can't move my body anymore. At this rate, they're going to eat me alive while I'm still conscious. What do I do now? His vision grew blurry and began to close. His heavy eyelids fluttered shut, and Xian's heart was filled with resentment. Is this the end? Are the clips of my life flashing before my eyes? A larva crawled closer and closer, letting out a small chirping sound. He clenched his fist and crushed it with all his might. On the cliff wall, a desert ant saw this and let out a piercing shriek. Below, Xian clenched his fist and laughed out loud. Damn you. He lifted his head and screamed. There isn't a single beautiful memory in my head. This is so unfair. I can't die like such a loser. On his arm, 2 energy lines lit up. Those damn ants. Immediately afterward, the ground exploded, sending sand flying high into the air. The desert ants saw this and quickly gathered, signaling each other. The ground beneath them also exploded violently, causing rocks and dirt to scatter. The cliff wall was quickly engulfed in dust, as large pieces of rock continuously flew off. Below, Xian lowered his head, as a series of sand missiles formed around him. Xian looked down at his arm. I just leveled up. The seal is gone, and my stamina and mana are surging. He stared at the 2 glowing lines, asking uncertainly, did I evolve? Xian stared at his hand, muttering. Compared to when I was F rank, my strength and mana are on a completely different level now. He glanced to the left and added, and yet, Xian looked at the giant, unscathed body of the queen ant in astonishment. Not a single scratch on her. Immediately after, he saw her charge straight toward him, so he jumped to the side to dodge. Xian pointed 2 fingers at the queen ant, gritting his teeth. You bastard, you smash cliffs like they're sand walls. How strong are you anyway? The sand missiles slammed into the queen ant and exploded, but she remained completely unharmed. Xian braced his hands on the ground to steady himself and exclaimed, This is crazy, not even a scratch. That old man is a monster. He used his strength, causing veins to pop on the back of his hand. At this rate, I'm not going to win. Xian stared at the giant queen ant in front of him. No matter how hard he attacked now, he couldn't leave a single mark on her. He held his hands out in front of him as if measuring her size. Then I have to use my brain, how to defeat armor that can't be broken. Immediately after, the sand beneath the queen ant rose up and gathered, not breaking it, nor piercing it, but tearing it apart. The surrounding sand gathered like a rope, binding it tightly. Xian watched as streams of sand poured out from his tightly clenched hands. That's right, if I can't destroy it, I'll twist that armor and peel it all off. As the queen ant was squeezed relentlessly by the flowing sand, it let out a screeching hiss. Along with a roar, a glowing energy orb formed between its mandibles. Xian didn't stop controlling the surrounding sand to encircle the queen ant within. Seeing that glowing orb, he opened his mouth wide and roared. You crazy thing, what the hell is this? Feeling his eardrums being perforated, Xian realized with a start. Low frequency? No, it's high frequency. At this rate, I'm going to explode. The afterglow of that orb of light struck continuously toward where he was standing. Xian bowed his head and gritted his teeth, scolding fiercely with a savage expression. "You bastard, even at the very last minute, you were still hiding this move, huh?" White light flashed in his eyes and blood poured out incessantly. "Fine then, let's go all out, you dog." He looked straight at the distant queen ant and shouted, "Let's see if I die or if you die." He felt the low-frequency pulses striking deep, adding, "Let's test it and find out." His eyes widened, filled with fierce, bloodshot veins. "I won't stop until one of us is down. Come and get me, you piece of trash." After a moment, the light in his hand snapped, and his entire body fell backward. His eyes opened wide, his face filled with disbelief. What's happening? Why is my body?" He fell backward unconsciously, whispering to himself, "I'm done for, I hit my limit a while ago." His vision gradually blurred, and he couldn't control his falling body. "Why is this damn body so weak?" Deoden reached out and caught his entire body in his arms, muttering, "Honestly, you're so weak it's infuriating." The corner of his mouth curled into a teasing smile. "If you fall asleep here, you'll be waking up with a twisted face, kid, you idiot." Xian, with a tear-streaked face, smiled and called out to the old man. His faint voice rang out, "I'll leave the finishing blow to you." Hearing this, Deoden couldn't help but laugh out loud. "What a cheeky brat. It seems you're not entirely useless after all." The old man turned his head to look at the bisectioned body of the creature. "The queen ant is rank C. It's much stronger than you. Even so, the fact that you didn't give up and dared to risk your life to fight is very commendable. You deserve to live on." Xian closed his eyes, resting his head on Deoden's chest. "I can't hear a word you're saying. My eardrums are completely trashed." Immediately after, he gently lifted the boy up with one hand. "You only ruined your eardrums, nothing more." Xian, being carried by Deoden, looked up with a face full of confusion. "Hey, old man, where are you taking me all of a sudden?" The old man turned his head to look at the queen ant's eggs in the nearby ruins, and carried him over. Xian pouted, staring intently at them, suspiciously asking, "What's this now?" He pointed a finger at the queen ant's eggs and arched his eyebrows. "Old man, this is." The old man grinned as he looked over, one hand resting on a stone wall inscribed with text. His hand rested on a stone tablet that read, "Eat it, it's medicine." Seeing this, Xian silently doubted him. "What the hell is this? Is he really telling me to eat that thing?" He stared wide-eyed at the queen ant eggs, thinking, "How on earth am I supposed to eat that?" Xian looked up to probe him. "Old man, I'm asking just to be sure. After eating it, I won't go insane like I did after eating that worm bile, will I?" Deoden glanced in the other direction, answering without a care, "If you eat that, you'll probably just die." He watched the old man's mouth open and close, thinking furiously, "Damn it, I can't hear a word he's saying." Finally, he gave in, opening his mouth to bite into the queen ant egg. "Forget it, I probably won't die immediately." He swallowed it down his throat, thinking to himself that he didn't know what strawberries tasted like, but right after that, with a face full of excitement, he looked up and praised, "What is this? It tastes amazing." His eyes widened, veins constantly appearing. "Are there any more, old man?" Xian felt sharp spikes growing from within his body and stuttered, asking, "Old man, what is?" He bowed his head, feeling his body changing, his internal organs shifting, meaning his intestines were being twisted and flipped completely inside out. The queen ant eggs are extremely toxic. Eating even a little bit is enough to make a person's internal organs flip upside down. In other words, anyone who eats them will have their internal organs punctured by spikes and twisted around until they feel like they're dying from torn intestines. Xian clutched his head with both hands, screaming crazily, "No, what the hell is this? What kind of thing did you just feed me?" Deoden picked at his ear, furrowing his brow in reproach. "You're too noisy. If you want to survive in this crazy world, get used to it." Xian puffed out his cheeks, unable to help but retort, "How can anyone get used to this?" He spat out a mouthful of blood, cursing angrily, "Damn it." Xian looked at his blood-stained hands. "This trashy life, I kept imagining that I had finally found someone I could trust." The scene by the campfire with Deoden flashed in his mind, and he thought to himself, in the end, "I really am just a fool." Xian bowed his head, cold sweat continuously rolling down his face. The old man stood still, watching his entire body collapse to the ground. Deoden reached out to lift the severed lower body of the queen ant to examine it. "All right, now then." Then he stabbed his hand deep inside to search. Deoden's hand went deep into its body, quickly searching everywhere. After a while, he grabbed the queen ant's mana stone and pulled it out forcefully. He looked at the glowing stone in his hand with a face full of smiles. "The mana stone of a magical beast is definitely a different class than the ones at the stone mine. I've really hit the jackpot." He quickly stashed the mana stone into his pouch, cast a glance over, and decided, "Looks like this ant is useful too, so I'll just collect everything." Deoden was startled when he saw his sword emitting a faint light. His eyes glanced to the side, muttering in a low voice, "My old friend." Deoden looked at Xian, who was lying on the ground, and added, "Yes, I know, but there's no other way. The weak must die, that is simply their fate." Saying that, he quickly pulled his sword out of the ground, intending to turn and leave. Deoden didn't turn his head back. "You know it well too, we don't have much time left." After a long while, he looked at the fresh blood in front of him, unable to believe it, and asked, "What? I'm still alive. Immediately after, Deoden leaned in with a bright smile. Hey, awake already, you idiot. Dust instantly exploded into the air, covering everything inside. He waved his hand, complaining unhappily. You cheeky brat, what are you doing kicking up all this dust? Deoden looked up, arching his eyebrows to confirm. Really? He looked at the sand missiles surrounding the boy and said, Are you serious, you fool? Deoden looked at them calmly, aiming straight at himself. Hey, you idiot, stop making a mess. And instead, Xian raised his hands, manipulating the sand to attack Deoden continuously. Why? He looked excitedly at the sand streaming in from all sides, attacking. Why are you trying to kill me? The surrounding sand surged up along with the repeated questioning. Why? His hand waved, his eyes filled with determination. I won't forgive you. Under the ground, sharp stone pillars quickly rose high, and under his control, sand rushed in from all four directions. The old man struck the stone pillars, breaking them, while he raised both hands, attacking him relentlessly. Xian, drenched in sweat, held his position, his hands raised as he breathed heavily. He looked up, his voice cold as he asked. I asked, why do you want to? Deoden roared angrily. God, you idiot, what are you doing? He crossed his arms, standing behind the stone pillars, mocking. I know queen ant eggs have toxins that scramble the mind, but can't you use your brain to think for a second? Xian looked at him in utter disbelief, thinking, what the hell? He's just standing there taking all my hits. He doesn't even have a single scratch. His eyebrows furrowed. Deoden stopped and calmly explained. You fool, if I wanted you dead, I could snap my fingers and you'd be gone. Why would I go through the trouble of poisoning you? He listened in silence for a long time, stuttering. That does sound reasonable. Immediately after, his voice continued. Queen ant eggs are indeed a highly toxic type that flips internal organs, but on the other hand, they also help expel all toxins and impurities from your body. Depending on how they are used, they are either deadly poison or a supreme elixir. They wash away all the filth in your body. Xian stood still, listening to Deoden, then filled those gaps with mana. When you attacked me just now, you felt it yourself, didn't you? Hearing his words, he immediately clenched his fist, feeling that his mana reserves had increased 3- or 4-fold. After finishing, he looked at him with an apprehensive face. He immediately lunged to hug Deoden. I'm sorry for doubting you. I must have been short-circuiting earlier. How could I have doubted you? The old man bowed his head and answered gently. All right, you super-duper idiot, I know, now let go of me. What kind of grown man keeps clinging to others like this? It's gross. Xian, with eyes full of tears, bit his lip to keep from sobbing. I'm not enjoying this either. Wait, I can hear again? It even healed my ears. Deoden bowed his head, laughing and urging, You fool, you're all grown up and still crying like a child. Let go of me now. He still wouldn't lift his head, refusing. No way, it's not finished yet. He sensed the urgency of the sword and whispered back. I know, I understand. My old friend, honestly, if he had actually died just now, it wouldn't have been a surprise. Xian, with a face full of tears and snot, looked up to observe. That was close. I guess he won't hold a grudge anymore, right? That little rescue was actually pretty decent. Deoden looked at his face and muttered, The fact that he survived is just because he's strong. He clenched his fist until the veins popped out. If he gets strong quickly, he's useless to me. What a gamble placed on a pile of trash. He clenched his fist until the veins popped out. If he gets strong quickly, he's useless to me. What a gamble placed on a pile of trash. He frowned, staring intently at the old man. Old man, why are you grabbing me again? The corners of his mouth curled up to reveal perfectly even teeth. He smiled brightly and pointed one finger upward. We don't have much time, so it's best to get out of here quickly, don't you think? Xian rolled his eyes, his face covered in cold sweat. Damn it, don't tell me you're going to. On the ground, a few scorpions were happily gathering. Suddenly, a surge of power shattered the ground and shot straight upward. Deoden carried him with one hand and laughed out loud. How is it, you idiot? Much faster, right? He pointed a fist and roared. Fast my ass, can't you just walk like a normal human being for once? He turned his head and shouted demandingly. Then don't go sleeping like a log for 4 straight days. Deoden furrowed his brow, casting a glance to the side. A weakling like you will never get a wife. Wait, what is that? Xian heard him and followed his gaze. What is it now? At this point, nothing can surprise me anymore. He widened his eyes in astonishment, only able to gasp. Xian saw the giant silhouette of Awaken and yelled. Holy crap, what the hell is that? He stared intently in that direction, inquiring. That magical beast is that huge even though it's at least 30 kilometers away. Deoden let go and quickly descended to the ground. They won't let me have a moment of peace, will they? That is the mobile fortress Awaken, he doubtfully repeated. Awaken. He looked at its giant legs and affirmed. Yes, it's a rank B turtle-type magical beast, but its defensive strength far exceeds even rank A. They modified its shell and domesticated it to serve as a means of transport. Xian was astonished, his jaw dropping as he asked, Are you telling me that people actually ride that crazy monster? Deoden cast a glance over and affirmed. Yes, watch closely, you idiot. He looked up, open-mouthed, as he heard the old man's voice ring in his ear. This world is vast. Deoden crossed his arms and said, And out there are freaks with the ability to control a beast like that. He looked at the looming Akelin and added, engrave that image into your mind. From atop it, a figure stepped onto Akelin and pushed off to descend. In the blink of an eye, he had landed right in front of the two. The man in glasses spoke up. It was too far, so I wasn't quite sure. But it really was. Xian, standing beside him, gasped, what is this? Deoden didn't turn his head back as he ordered. Stand still, you idiot. The man in glasses squinted to look closely. Long time no see, eh? He put his hands behind his back and arched his eyebrows, adding, Deoden. Deoden mocked Pavelsa, saying he had lost even more teeth since the last time they met. Meanwhile, Pavelsa called him a freak for still acting like a monster, even though he was over 100 years old. Their constant barrage of insults felt strangely like the bickering of old comrades. Deoden asked why Pavelsa was so far from the Morklin tribe's territory. Pavelsa explained that scavengers had swarmed the area, forcing him to move carefully. Deoden ridiculed the idea of having to run away from scavengers, but Pavelsa replied that it was wisdom, unlike Deoden's reckless brutality. Watching them, Xian felt frustrated. Old people are supposed to get weaker with age. Yet these two old men radiated an overwhelming power, completely destroying his understanding of aging. Tired of the argument, Pavelsa whistled, summoning Akelin, a giant snake-like monster. Xian froze in fear before its terrifying presence. Akelin looked at him suspiciously, but Deoden casually grabbed Xian and introduced him as the garbage he had picked up while cleaning up the environment. Pavelsa laughed out loud, shocked to learn that Deoden was willing to travel with someone else. The group then reached the Morklin tribe's settlement. Xian was stunned by its scale. Deoden explained that the tribe was built on blood relations, before immediately insulting them as idiots who relied on Akelin. Pavelsa frowned at the lack of respect, but Deoden coldly asserted that the tribe would collapse the moment Pavelsa passed away. Ignoring the argument, Pavelsa invited them inside. They sat together, Deoden arrogantly resting his feet on the table, while Pavelsa demanded to inspect the cargo he had brought. With a wave of mana, Deoden revealed mountains of monster materials, bones, claws, fangs, and countless other remnants. Xian was horrified by the sheer number of giant monsters that Deoden had surely massacred. Deoden casually replied that Xian would eventually join that pile as well. Trying to change the subject, Xian asked if Deoden was a magic-type warrior because of the sudden appearance of the items. Insulted, Deoden mocked him for not knowing about spatial storage. When Xian shouted back, demanding a proper explanation, Deoden exploded in anger. Meanwhile, Pavelsa carefully examined the materials and admitted they were flawless. Deoden ignored the praise and demanded payment. Pavelsa joked, asking if he wanted mana stones, before finally asking what he truly craved. Deoden requested a breastplate crafted from a wolf queen ant and a spatial tool. During the negotiation, Xian spoke up loudly again and received a brutal slap from Deoden that nearly flattened him. Pavelsa wondered why Deoden needed those items when he already possessed so many spatial storage units. Deoden then grabbed Xian and bluntly explained that the gear was for the fool beside him, not for himself. For the first time, Pavelsa realized Deoden actually cared about someone else. Curious, he called his granddaughter, Kay, over. When Kay appeared, Xian was stunned by her beauty. Pavelsa asked if she still had the spatial bracelet she had once created. She explained that she no longer had that bracelet, but still possessed a gauntlet with incredibly successful enhancement technology. Pavelsa immediately ordered her to give it to Xian. Kay was horrified at the thought of parting with such a precious artifact. Meanwhile, Deoden smiled in surprise upon learning she had become a master of enhancement. He praised her talent, explaining that even in Neo Soul, enhancement masters were extremely rare. Embarrassed but delighted, Kay accepted the praise. Pavelsa cut through the awkwardness and ordered Kay to prepare the gauntlet, while telling Noel to start crafting the breastplate. Kay obeyed and took Xian along. As they walked, Kay asked about Xian's relationship with Deoden. Xian admitted they only met by chance, and that he was basically being dragged along against his will. Shocked, Kay warned him that simply surviving alongside Deoden was unbelievable, because that old man was a true monster. She recalled seeing Deoden slaughter monsters with his bare hands when she was little, and eating them afterward. That memory still terrified her, so she warned Xian to be careful when around him. Finally, she led Xian into her workshop. His eyes widened at the countless tools and magical devices filling the room. Proudly, Kay explained that almost everything there was a masterpiece of her own making. Full of excitement, she introduced a special artifact made from armored starfish material and adamantium. The gauntlet possessed spatial storage and a restoration function allowing it to self-repair. It also carried a fire attribute that could make the user monstrously powerful, depending on the compatible gear. Xian hesitated, unsure if he should accept something so valuable. But Kay explained that her grandfather had already decided. She handed him the gauntlet, which resembled gloves, while warning him that anything stored inside could never be retrieved again. Xian accepted gratefully, even though Kay clearly hated parting with her baby. When he tried to take it, both of them awkwardly tugged the gauntlet back and forth like squabbling children. Suddenly, a shrill scream echoed throughout the settlement. Kay immediately recognized it as Archelon's roar and realized someone had arrived. At the same time, Pavls's expression darkened as he sensed the scavengers returning. In the distance, a group of scavengers was charging toward the Mortland tribe on horseback at terrifying speed. Observing their approach, Kay explained, "They're a notorious group that has expanded rapidly lately." Xian looked toward those approaching on horseback and asked, "Exactly who are they?" "The Black Shark Pirates," Kay answered immediately. "Their captain is a crazy bastard with awaken rank D status, and every one of his high-ranking officers is an awakened scavenger. They didn't just loot others." Her expression turned colder as she continued. "They are psychopaths who kill without blinking. The more you talk about them, the angrier you get." They moved quickly through the facility. Finally, she stopped before a large door while Xian hurriedly followed behind. "What?" Xian asked in disbelief, even though he was only rank D. Ignoring his surprise, Kay suddenly shouted toward the room behind the door. "Grandfather, they've arrived." Pavls's calm voice immediately answered from within. "I know." Kay quickly continued. "Should we move, Archelon?" After considering it for a moment, Pavlsa shook his head. "They'll catch up to us in a flash. Now is the time for a counterattack." "Understood," Kay answered without hesitation. "I will gather the warriors immediately." Before she could finish, Crayon interrupted while still sitting comfortably in his chair. "Not you lot. We will handle this." His words stunned Kay instantly. "What?" Then Crayon pointed straight at Xian and shouted, "Hey, kid, you are going to be responsible for this." Xian was dumbstruck. "What?" "That's right, kid," Crayon roared. "You took the treasure, so you're going to do nothing. You have to pay them back." Xian's eyes widened in disbelief. "But how can I defeat a rank D person?" Crayon just smirked. "What are you scared, kid?" Those simple words hit Xian harder than he expected. For a moment, he couldn't come up with any response. It was such an obvious provocation, yet somehow it was extremely effective. A moment later, Xian found himself thrown off the giant turtle and pushed toward the battlefield, whether he liked it or not. After landing, he could only look ahead while silently cursing himself. "I can't believe I fell for such a cheap provocation." After that, another thought popped into his mind. "Then just stand there if you're scared." Those words echoed in his head as he clenched his fists. He's definitely an experienced veteran. That old man is extremely cunning. Xian took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. "Calm down, I don't have time for this." Then he unleashed his power. Xian slowly closed his eyes and took a deep breath. As he focused, the sand spreading across the surrounding area began to react to his will, shifting and moving under his control. Without opening his eyes, he calmly muttered, "They'll be here in about 5 minutes. I need to find a way to defeat an awakened of a higher rank than me." After that, he raised a hand into the air. Not far away, Pavlsa glanced at Crayon and asked with concern, "Is this really okay?" Crayon looked at her and replied, "Doing what?" Pavlsa pointed at Xian and said, "I'm asking if it's okay to leave that child alone. Didn't you say he was only rank E?" Crayon's answer came without hesitation. "If he loses, he dies. Simple as that." Hearing this, Pavlsa sighed and watched Xian from afar. "You're as extreme as ever." Deep down, she couldn't help but worry. Even a tiger cub can be bitten to death by a dog when it's still small. However, if that tiger cub manages to survive and bares its fangs, one day it could become a terrifying predator. Looking down at Xian, he suddenly shouted, "Hey, kid, just remember one thing." However, the story never revealed exactly what he had said to him. Meanwhile, on the other side of the desert, a group of horsemen finally spotted their target. One of the riders moved to the front and excitedly reported, "Finally caught up to them, Captain Gawain. Should I tell the others to pick out items worth selling?" Gawain looked ahead with a cruel smile spreading across his face. "Sever their limbs and feed them to the Archelon. Burn it into their memories that we are the Black Shark Pirates. It's time for a massacre." Full of confidence, the pirates urged their horses forward. However, before they could go any further, something happened that none of them expected. Their horses abruptly came to a complete stop. The next moment, the sand beneath them began to collapse. In a blink, both horse and rider were dragged down, as if the desert itself had come alive. Gawain's eyes widened in shock as he screamed, "What is this? The sand is cracking. The sand is moving." The entire group of pirates hadn't even had a chance to act before being swallowed by the sand pit. Right then, a young woman quickly rushed behind him and asked, "Captain, are you okay?" Gawain immediately turned toward her. "Clang, did these bastards set a trap?" Clang quickly shook her head. "No, there definitely wasn't a trap. Maybe one of them is." But before she could finish her sentence, a hand suddenly shot out from behind and grabbed her. It was Xian. The young awakened had appeared without anyone knowing. Gawain saw this and wanted to rush to her rescue. However, the attack was swift, brutal, and merciless. Clang didn't even have time to scream. In a powerful burst, Xian crushed and killed her instantly. For a brief moment, the entire battlefield went silent. After that, Gawain saw the lifeless corpse of his subordinate. The truth hit him instantly. Clang's lifeless body collapsed onto the sand. For a brief moment, everything seemed to freeze. Xian stood there calmly, his eyes locked on the pirate captain as he spoke in a cold voice. Now it's your turn. However, before he could do anything else, one of the gang members moved. He appeared behind Xian in an instant and unleashed a devastating attack with the intention of finishing him off in one blow. The sheer force of the attack immediately sent sand flying everywhere. However, the moment the strike hit, he felt something was wrong. Masamoto narrowed his eyes in confusion. "He dodged my attack," he muttered, but after looking closer, he reached a different conclusion. Xian didn't simply dodge. Somehow he had completely blocked the attack. On this side, Captain Gawain, as if witnessing something, hurriedly shouted a warning. "Masamoto, right under your feet." Masamoto saw this and hurriedly looked down in panic, only to discover that the sand beneath his feet had turned into sharp drills, preparing to pierce straight upward. He hurriedly swung his weapon downward to block the blow. While Xian was busy dealing with the attacker, Gawain saw an opportunity and lunged from behind once again. What kind of tricks is this brat using? He thought, pouring all his strength into a punch. He unleashed a full-force blow aimed directly at Xian. However, before the attack could reach its target, a wall of sand rose up and blocked it completely. Gawain's eyes widened. "What the hell?" he shouted. "You've been using cheap tricks this whole time. Do you think this bit of sand can stop me?" Roaring with rage, he threw another punch, shattering the sand shield into countless fragments. However, what he saw behind the broken barrier shocked him even more. His subordinate Masamoto was dead at the protagonist's sword. Xian pulled his sword out of the pirate's corpse and slowly shifted his gaze toward Gawain. As Xian stared at the pirate captain, Pavls's earlier words echoed in his mind. "Maybe you're more worried about killing a human than fighting a rank D person." Then his voice became firmer. "But remember this, those bastards aren't human." Xian was confused when he first heard that. "They aren't?" he had asked. Pavls's answer came immediately. "That's right. They love to kill. They torture and slaughter others without any reason. They take pride in raping women and slaughtering children. Over 200 people have died by their hands. Do you really think creatures like that are human?" Those words now rang clearly in Xian's ears. After tossing the pirate's corpse aside, he glared at Gawain with burning hatred. At the same time, Gawain lunged with all his might, veins popping all over his body as killing intent exploded from him. "You bastard!" he roared. In response, Xian sent countless sharp bullets flying toward him. The sand transformed into deadly spikes, shooting through the air like arrows. However, Gawain kept charging straight through them while shouting, "Still playing games? Do you think this trash is enough to defeat me? You piece of trash, I won't let you die peacefully. I will carve you into pieces and feed you to the beasts. I will make you beg for death." Despite the terrifying threats, Xian's expression remained cold. He looked straight into Gawain's eyes and calmly asked, "Are those your last words?" Hearing that only made the pirate captain angrier. His face twisted in rage as he charged. Meanwhile, Xian's masters observed from afar, and unlike Gawain, they looked surprisingly pleased. Xian slowly tightened his grip on his sword and stared at the pirate captain with absolute contempt. "You trash." The insult hit the mark. Gawain's eyes widened in disbelief before his rage reached a whole new level. "Calling us trash, huh?" When Captain Gawain saw the lifeless corpses of his comrades scattered across the battlefield, his expression turned dark. Staring at them in disbelief, he muttered, "Clang, Masamoto, both were veterans." He admitted they wouldn't be defeated by an amateur. Exactly what kind of power is this brat using? The death of his companions had shaken him, releasing a powerful aura from his body. Gawain fixed his gaze on Xian and shouted, "I'm done playing hide-and-seek with you. Why don't you show the true power hidden within the sand? If you are a true awakened, stop hiding and face me." As Xian rushed toward him with terrifying speed, countless sand bullets flew through the air from every direction. However, Gawain calmly blocked each bullet with the aura surrounding his body. Standing firmly, he scanned the battlefield and said, "So, what will your next move be?" He looked ahead, expecting to see Xian charging toward him, but there was no trace of him. His eyes widened slightly as he muttered again. He disappeared again. Where the hell is he? At that very moment, Xian suddenly appeared behind him and launched a surprise attack. However, he was met with a shock. Gawain had raised his guard and blocked the attack perfectly. Internally, Xian was stunned. How did he predict my attack? He wondered. A confident smile appeared on Gawain's face as he countered with an action. "Finally," he said, "you're in my attack range." Gawain moved with lightning speed, instantly pinning the protagonist down into the sand. "A nameless nobody like you dare to attack me. Haven't you ever heard? A single mistake on the battlefield cost you your life." The captain's grip was like cold iron, squeezing the air right out of Xian's lungs. "I'm going to make you feel every single blow," Gawain growled as he pulled his fist back. "This one is for Masamoto." The punch slammed into Xian with terrifying force. A violent shockwave erupted, sending dust and debris flying across the battlefield. Before Xian could recover, Gawain raised his other fist, his anger burning hotter than ever. "This is for Claying, for Eli, for Ezreal, for Mirage." Each name called out was followed by a brutal punch. Blow after blow, his fist pounded into Xian's face with merciless force. The barrage seemed endless. Each strike carried the sorrow, anger, and frustration he felt over the deaths of his comrades. After landing countless blows, Gawain continued to hold Xian in place. Whatever your ability is, it's useless once I've got you. Blame your own weakness and die. However, as he tried to throw another punch forward, something wasn't right. His fist didn't move as expected. A look of confusion appeared on his face as he muttered, "What?" Instinctively, he turned his head to look behind him. His arm was being held back by a pair of hands made of sand. This left Gawain filled with doubt. He took off his gauntlet and thought, what? Did he escape? Before Gawain could fully process what had happened, an incredibly powerful attack struck him directly. The impact was immense, forcing the captain back as the power of the strike. While Gawain was pushed back, Xian stood to the side, silently observing everything. After taking the hit, Gawain quickly regained his composure and began to analyze the situation. I panicked and let him get away. But this wound, the power behind it clearly diminished. Those gauntlets must have been amplifying his power. He's definitely a wind-type user, a rare breed among magic users. He uses sand to add physical force to his attacks. I figured out all his tricks. With that thought, he poured force into his legs and lunged forward at lightning speed. His fist was also enveloped in red mana, cursing incessantly. Now that you've lost your gauntlets, you aren't as strong as you were before. Gawain shouted loudly. A magic-type user without an amplifier. Do you think you can beat a combat-type user at close range? Xian just looked at him and flashed a smug smile. Then, in the next instant, everything changed. A giant sand spear suddenly erupted from behind Gawain. It pierced right through his body before he could react. The attack was so sudden that even someone of his caliber couldn't avoid it. It aimed for my back, Gawain realized in shock. Not far away, Xian slowly smiled. He muttered, "That damn old man. In the end, you dropped your guard because you were too focused on your own attack. You bastard," Gawain roared in anger, "using that same move on me again." But his anger quickly turned to skepticism. His eyes widened as he looked at the attack that had pierced him, then looked back at Xian. He doesn't have the gauntlets, he thought in terror. The more he considered it, the more absurd it became. It's impossible for a magic-type user to transmit this much power through sand without an item to amplify their abilities. It's impossible. This kid, he muttered. A chill ran down his spine as a terrifying possibility crossed his mind. Don't tell me it's, Gawain whispered. The ability to control sand to manipulate the world itself. This shouldn't exist. He screamed internally while being buried by the sand. Watching the scene unfold, Pavilla was equally stunned. His eyes never left Xian as he tried to grasp what he was seeing. He can control sand. The whole world is his weapon and his shield. I can't believe what I'm seeing. For a moment, he remained silent, carefully analyzing everything that had happened during the battle. Furthermore, he said, Gawain is a scavenger with seasoned combat experience. If they had fought head-on, Xian's life would have been in real danger. The more he thought about it, the more incredible Xian's actions became. This kid used his position as an unconventional fighter to lure his opponent into lowering his guard. He made Gawain believe he was inexperienced. He made him think he'd figured out all his capabilities. Pavilla's expression became more serious. He waited for the perfect opening, the experience needed to make those decisions. He achieved it all through instinct. It sounds absurd, Pavilla said slowly, but he did it right in the middle of the fight. His gaze remained locked on Xian. He is not an ordinary tiger cub, that's for sure. Pavilla suddenly turned to Crayon and demanded an answer. Where on earth did you find a hellish monster like this? The scene cut back to Xian. His condition wasn't looking great. His face was swollen and covered in blood. Even so, a faint smile appeared on his lips as he looked back at the battle. Almost finished, he thought. That was dangerous. If one of those strikes had hit his weak spot, he would have been done for. As he spoke, he wiped the blood off his face and chuckled. But that old man will probably praise me for such a good fight. That's right. However, before he could relax any further, a loud noise rang out. The protagonist looked over and discovered a large, long slash mark had appeared on the sand. Xian looked at it in shock. But before he could say anything, a furious voice echoed throughout the area. You idiot, how dare you come back after that battle? It was Crayon. Xian blinked, confused. Wait, Crayon, at least give me a reason. What did I do wrong this time? He truly didn't understand why Crayon was so furious, which only made Crayon even more heated. The guy you spared, Crayon shouted. Why couldn't you see it? He was trying to stab you in the back. Couldn't you even predict that? The accusation left Xian completely stunned. He hadn't expected that to be the reason. Crayon continued without giving him a chance to defend himself. How long do you intend to keep up that arrogant attitude? As he spoke, Crayon stepped down, holding his sword, his expression showing clear frustration and annoyance. Go back. That attitude will get you killed sooner or later. Nearby, Pavilla and Kay watched the exchange in silence. Neither interrupted, simply watching Crayon lecture Xian. It's not too late, Crayon continued. Go back. An awkward silence filled the area. Then suddenly a voice rang out from the front. Thank you. Pavilla and Kay stepped down and approached. Upon reaching them, they spoke calmly. All Archelon residents are people who don't know how to fight. People like us in the Moat clan simply weren't born to fight. Pavilla stepped forward and spoke with absolute sincerity. We are all blacksmiths. All we can do is swing our tools at bandits. If it weren't for you, I can't imagine how many people would have died. Truly, thank you. You did a great job. Before Xian could react, Kay rushed over and embraced him. That's right, you were so cool. You fought the Black Shark Gang all by yourself. Don't get stressed because of what that monster Crayon said. He always has ridiculously high standards. When I forged my first dagger as a child. But before she could finish, Xian gently interrupted her. No, I knew Masamoto could attack me when I spared him, but I didn't kill him. His voice was calm but heavy with self-reproach. I tried my best not to look at that truth. I just wanted Masamoto to be unconscious and disappear. I know they are all vicious people. I know they deserve to die, but I didn't have the courage to be the one to end it. It was all for a cowardly reason. I didn't want to feel guilty about killing someone. The atmosphere instantly fell silent. Crayon is right, Xian continued. He must have seen countless people like me get killed before, so he was probably showing his concern in his own way, hoping I wouldn't die the same way. He was someone who found it very difficult to express his feelings. After hearing Xian's confession, neither Pavilla nor Kay could find the words. Kay immediately stepped back and moved behind Pavilla, staring at Xian as if she had just witnessed something unbelievable. I've never heard anyone say that about Crayon. Did he hit his head somewhere? Pavilla didn't notice her joke. Instead, he silently digested everything Xian had said. He hesitated in a battle where his life was on the line. He must have had a very hard time. Especially at his age, everything is too big to grasp. I feel relieved, but also guilty. Poor children having to go through all this because of our uselessness. Shaking off those thoughts, Pavilla clapped his hands and said loudly to lighten the mood. All right, let's go inside and get something to eat. Kid, you should go wash up first. A while later, they went upstairs. Meanwhile, Crayon was sitting alone in his room, quietly doing his own thing. The old man looked completely relaxed, as if nothing important had happened that day. Suddenly, the door swung open. Xian rushed inside and shouted, "Why did you pretend you weren't there?" Crayon slowly turned his head toward him and smirked. "Oh, isn't it our little scaredy cat? Did you come here to demand to go home?" Xian frowned immediately. "What is that tone for?" Then he crossed his arms and tried to act confident. "Old man, you're underestimating me. Let me make myself clear. I'm not that fragile." That wasn't a big deal. However, before he could continue his tough guy act, Crayon calmly interrupted. "Your hands are still shaking." Xian paused. Only then did he notice his fingers were trembling slightly. Crayon's expression softened, becoming much more serious than before. "That's normal," he said. "If you felt fine, you'd be a madman. Killing someone isn't easy at all. You're ending a life, and that guilt will follow you forever. So there's no need to try to forget it. And there's no need to paralyze yourself because of it. The feeling of guilt should stay with you. Remembering it means you still understand the value of a life. The day you stop feeling anything after taking someone's life." Crayon continued in a calm but firm tone. "Feeling nothing at all won't make you any better than the people you killed. Remember this. If this torments you, it's proof that you are still human. If it's too hard to bear, you can leave right now." The old man offered him an escape, but Xian shook his head immediately. "I told you I won't crumble." His voice was full of determination. "That's not the problem for me. I will protect my own life, so don't worry." Then a smile appeared on his face as he added, "Besides, how could I leave a stubborn old man like you all alone? I'll stick with you so you don't die of loneliness." For a moment, Crayon actually smiled when he saw that rare reaction. Xian pressed him with smugness. "Anyway, having me here will be less lonely, right?" The old man remained silent. "Be honest with yourself." Xian crossed his arms confidently. "If it weren't for me, who would be here to clean up your mess?" As soon as those words left his mouth, Crayon's fist flew toward him. "Wait, use your words, not your fists." Xian's panicked scream echoed through the room as the old man immediately applied his preferred method of communication. Despite the serious conversation they had just shared, deep inside the forge, an extraordinary scene was unfolding. Many master blacksmiths had gathered in one place, all focused on a single task. The air vibrated with temperature and spiritual energy as they worked tirelessly, pouring their skills and focus into the process. Kay watched the scene with wide eyes. "My God, I've never seen master blacksmiths gather like this before." Standing next to her, Pavilla nodded as if it were natural. "That's understandable. They are tempering the spirit for DeJordan's sword." Still, Kay couldn't hide her skepticism. "But it's been several days already. How can a sword radiate so much power?" Pavilla breathed slowly before answering. "This crayon sword is a masterpiece, a type of weapon forged from one man's obsession. That's all that can be said." However, that explanation only made Kay more curious. "But I've never seen anything like this. I can't believe a human made this. It has countless spells, hundreds of thousands of energy cores, and the souls of wild beasts embedded within it. Truth be told, it felt more like a living creature than a sword." "Who was it that made that?" Kay whispered the question without taking her eyes off the weapon. "Are they even human?" her grandfather finally answered. "Crayon." Kay blinked. "Wait, so the swordsmith and the sword share the same name?" Pavilla nodded. "That is why it is a great work." Finally, Pavilla turned away. "We can talk about that later." The group headed toward a nearby room. However, as soon as they entered, they stopped dead in their tracks. The scene before them was so unexpected that everyone watched in amazement. Crayon doesn't stay in one place for too long, Pavilla muttered. So perhaps they're already ready to leave. Then Kay looked ahead and shouted immediately, "What on earth, Crayon?" Her voice was full of disbelief. Standing in the room was Crayon, looking completely unconcerned by their presence.